avec lesquels j'ai successivement travaillé ces 8 dernières années. J'ai nommé dans l'ordre de leur présidence Alpha Condé, Paul Kagame, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Cyril Ramaphosa, Antoine Félix Tshisekedi, Macky Sall, Azali Assoumani et Mohamed Ould-Cheikh Al-Ghazouani. En cet instant de remembrance, je ne peux oublier le président Idriss Déby Itnou, paix à son âme, qui, en africaniste convaincu, a eu l'initiative de ma candidature à la tête de la commission et qui s'est investi sans compter pour un tel destin pour moi. Sa mort tragique a été ma plus atroce douleur de ce double mandat. Excellences, Mesdames, Messieurs, 8 ans se sont écoulés depuis mon élection fin janvier 2017 comme président de la Commission de l'Union africaine. En ces moments chargés d'historicité, de signification et de symboles, je voudrais m'acquitter du devoir moral de vous présenter les grandes lignes du bilan de ce double mandat. Grâce à ces parcours, je me suis profondément imprégné à la fois de ce qui fait la grandeur et le rayonnement de notre continent, de notre organisation continentale, ainsi que des pesanteurs et limites diverses ayant entraîné le rythme de nos cadences. J'ai sillonné ce beau et fantastique continent. J'éprouve une profonde fierté d'avoir visité au moins une fois tous les 55 membres de notre Union. L'opportunité que m'offre ce moment est historique et unique. J'y tenterai de m'acquitter de la double obligation de rendre compte et de m'interroger sur quelques problématiques en ayant bien conscience qu'il ne faut absolument pas abuser de votre temps si précieux. Un rapport consolidé de notre bilan et un rapport annuel vous ont été distribués conformément à notre réglementation. Monsieur le Président, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, les rapides et intenses bouleversements géopolitiques qui ont caractérisé le contexte international durant mes 2 mandats ont eu des manifestations à la fois violentes et déstabilisatrices. La subite dégradation de la situation sanitaire consécutive au déclenchement de la Covid-19 s'est accompagnée malheureusement d'importants chocs et de profondes turbulences économiques et diplomatiques. Pour l'Afrique, cela s'est traduit par une aggravation du poids de la dette, de la baisse des flux d'investissement publics et privés, de la violence et de la prégnance de certains conflits africains, de l'affaissement du panafricanisme et des chaînes de solidarité africaines, des manifestations d'obsolescence des institutions africaines, des appétits extérieurs en Afrique, des déficiences patentes en matière de gouvernance et de leadership en Afrique et même dans le monde, de la crise du multilatéralisme post-Seconde Guerre mondiale, etc., etc. La guerre russo-ukrainienne, enclenchée en février 2022, est venue noircir davantage ces tableaux, annonçant une recomposition géopolitique mondiale. Est née une ligne de fracture qui a suscité une forme de bipolarité qui, dans les imaginaires politiques, évoque la réalité pourtant théoriquement dépassée de la guerre froide. Des incertitudes profondes sur la soutenabilité de la paix et de la coopération internationale ont empoisonné les esprits, assombri les consciences et ont renforcé le pessimisme, les égoïsmes et le pragmatisme mercantile. Les conséquences de cette guerre ont profondément affecté l'Afrique, qui importait l'essentiel de sa consommation céréalière et ses intrants agricoles de ces 2 pays, la Russie et l'Ukraine. Le spectre de l'insécurité alimentaire et sanitaire a plané sur bien de nos pays, dont un bon nombre continue de souffrir de leur fragilité structurelle. أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي السادة سيداتي وسادتي، وفي الشرق الأوسط فإن الشعب الفلسطيني الشقيق عانى ويعاني أبشع أنواع الظلم في التاريخ البشري. إن الحرب الفظيعة والجائرة التي دمرت كل شيء في فلسطين وخاصة في غزة، واستمرار حرمان هذا الشعب من حقوقه الأساسية في الاستقلال والسلام والوجود والحياة بكل بساطة، لا تشكل عارا جسيما لكل الإنسانية. ورغم ذلك كله ظل الشعب الفلسطيني البطل صامدا، كما ظل الاتحاد الإفريقي في جانبه بكل قوة وحزم. هنيئا لك يا أخي الرئيس أبو مازن. Ces paysages d'apocalypse qu'offre aujourd'hui la Palestine, la bande et la population de Gaza en particulier, après plus d'une année de guerre destructrice de toute forme de vie et de biens, continue de se dérouler dans le silence presque total des puissances du monde, si ce n'est l'appel par certains à la déportation systématique des Palestiniens hors de leur terre. C'est le comble. C'est vraiment le comble. Ce drame inouï pèse aujourd'hui, malgré le cessez-le-feu et la libération des otages et prisonniers, facilités par le Qatar, l'Égypte et les États-Unis, sur la conscience universelle et questionne profondément sur notre humanité. Les taux de la mondialisation avancée, étouffante, déshumanisée, ne laissent point l'Afrique en dehors de l'élite hégémonique qui se déroule loin de sa terre. Bien au contraire, le continent en subit les débordements et fragmentations que traduisent les conflits par procuration, des soutiens des puissances extérieures à peine voilées aux parties belligérantes sur le continent, des expansions du terrorisme et de l'extrémisme violent, des poursuites de la guerre ravageuse au Soudan, à l'est de la République démocratique du Congo, des divisions de la Libye dont je salue l'adoption hier ici même de la charte de réconciliation. Félicitations à vous, Monsieur le Président Sassou Nguesso. Les tensions de tous ordres au Sahel, au bassin du lac Tchad, au golfe de Guinée, au Mozambique, à la Corne de l'Afrique et dans la région des Grands Lacs sont un autre pan de ces chapelets embrasiers des crises africaines. Les flux de réfugiés politiques, économiques, environnementaux et autres personnes déplacées internes viennent accentuer la situation sécuritaire, alimentaire et sanitaire déjà fragile de nombreux États membres. C'est à ce contexte mondial et régional fortement dégradé que nous avons été confrontés au cours des 8 dernières années de développement de notre action. Excellences, Monsieur le Président, Mesdames et Messieurs, la réforme institutionnelle de notre Union entamée en 2017 ambitionnait la création de conditions optimales pour garantir la poursuite efficiente des programmes inscrits dans notre boussole doctrinale stratégique, l'agenda 2063, aux fins d'une meilleure résistance aux défis ainsi identifiés. À ce titre, la reconfiguration du leadership de la Commission, un processus d'évaluation des performances du personnel, des rapports de collaboration plus étroits entre l'Union africaine et les communautés économiques régionales et mécanismes régionaux, actés par un nouveau protocole, l'institutionnalisation d'un sommet de coordination dédié à l'intégration, la mise en place des groupes techniques R10 et F15 chargés de veiller à la qualité des ressources humaines recrutées et au respect des règles d'or de la gestion budgétaire, financière et comptable de l'Union ont été les points saillants de cette réforme. Une évaluation de la pertinence de tous les organes de l'Union, sans exception aucune, fera naître une nouvelle cartographie administrative et institutionnelle de l'Union. J'insiste ici, en particulier, sur 3 parmi ces organes: le Parlement panafricain, le Conseil de paix et de sécurité et le Comité des représentants permanents. Le mouvement d'ensemble de la réforme, avec ses ombres et lumières, confirme sa pertinence et sa nature nécessairement progressive à se déployer sur le long terme. C'est une exigence d'adaptation perpétuelle des structures de notre Union aux évolutions qui caractérisent le monde. Je voudrais ici remercier les présidents Paul Kagame et William Ruto pour leurs remarquables efforts pour faire avancer cette réforme. Monsieur le Président, Mesdames et Messieurs, l'évaluation de la première décennie de mise en œuvre de l'agenda 2063, couvrant la période allant de 2014 à 2023, révèle les progrès sectoriels accomplis dans notre marche vers la construction de l'Afrique que nous voulons. Il est crucial d'en tirer les vraies leçons et de procéder aux ajustements pertinents subséquents. Dans le domaine de la santé, c'est une approche holistique, traduite sur le terrain à travers des actions auréolées de succès. Avec la survenance de la pandémie de la COVID-19, Africa CDC s'est affirmée comme l'instrument le plus efficace de la lutte contre toutes les maladies. La préoccupante question du financement de la santé continue de nous préoccuper. 2 mécanismes de financement de la couverture sanitaire universelle et celle de la lutte contre la malnutrition sur le continent ont été conçus. Grâce au Centre africain des vaccins vétérinaires, PANVAC, dont le nouveau laboratoire de production de vaccins a été inauguré en février 2024, une avancée significative dans le domaine de l'élevage, de la santé animale et du développement socio-économique a été réalisée. L'Agence africaine des médicaments, AMA, a commencé l'installation de son siège à Kigali et ses activités sont sur la rampe de lancement. La médecine traditionnelle a bénéficié de l'élaboration de 2 plans décennaux, le dernier courant de 2025 à 2035. Le champ de l'éducation a été animé par la volonté de concevoir un nouveau système éducatif pensé en fonction des exigences d'un monde où l'enjeu majeur est devenu la compétition autour de l'innovation scientifique, technologique et maintenant par l'intelligence artificielle. C'est en cohérence avec cette âme que des stratégies diverses et complémentaires ont été développées, notamment lors de la conférence de Nouakchott de l'année 2024, initiée par la présidence en exercice la Mauritanie, en collaboration avec la Commission de l'Union africaine et d'autres partenaires, dont l'UNICEF et l'UNESCO en particulier. La centralité des problématiques genre et jeunesse a été affirmée. Les envoyés spéciaux femmes et jeunes se sont bien implantés dans l'univers institutionnel du leadership de l'organisation. Tout au long des 8 années de ce double mandat, bien d'autres domaines cruciaux ont retenu toute l'attention qu'ils méritent, de par leur importance pour le développement socio-économique de l'Afrique. Qu'il s'agisse de notre vision sur les questions minières, du programme détaillé de l'agriculture et de l'économie bleue, du développement des infrastructures et de l'énergie, du changement climatique avec l'adaptation et la résilience climatique du continent, de l'intégration régionale à travers la mise en œuvre de la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine, de l'opérationnalisation effective du Fonds de la paix qui a dépassé l'objectif de 400 millions de dollars, du traitement des crises humanitaires dont l'Afrique est l'épicentre avec la mise en place de l'Agence africaine humanitaire, du renforcement de la visibilité de l'Union africaine à travers notre partenariat avec les Nations unies. Tous ont été au centre de notre entreprise collective. Je profite de l'occasion pour rendre ici un hommage tout particulier à un artisan majeur de ces partenariats. J'ai nommé Antonio Guterres, un grand ami de l'Afrique. Merci Antonio. L'accession de l'Union africaine au G20 et les BRICS, dont plusieurs États africains sont membres, est venue couronner cette visibilité. Sur toutes ces questions, les structures spécialisées de l'Union africaine et les États membres ont mené des réflexions approfondies et tracé des perspectives claires pour certaines et rendu concrètes bien d'autres. Monsieur le Président, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, il y a quelques mois, j'ai adressé à vos Excellences une lettre relative à quelques urgences centrales dans le devenir de notre Union et de ses capacités de réaliser au mieux possible nos objectifs. Je pense ici d'abord au Conseil de paix et sécurité, évoqué plus haut. Son rôle devrait s'accomplir sur la base des textes qui régissent son fonctionnement, dont il tire la force et la légitimité de concevoir, d'encadrer les questions prégnantes de notre sécurité collective et d'imposer, si nécessaire, les sanctions requises le cas échéant. Il est fort regrettable que ces décisions soient parfois contraires à nos principes et lorsqu'elles ne le sont pas, restent souvent lettre morte. Les décisions de cet organe continental central ne sauraient être considérées avec désinvolture et négligence par les États membres, ni par une conception et des pratiques biaisées des communautés économiques régionales au nom du principe galvaudé d'une subsidiarité interprétée de façon intéressée et partisane. L'évocation du CPS renvoie à la question des changements non constitutionnels du gouvernement. À cet égard, j'ai mentionné dans la dite lettre que nous n'avons plus désormais que deux options. Soit abandonner les principes qui régissent actuellement cette problématique, soit les appliquer sérieusement, quitte à les réviser et les adapter à nos besoins et réalités nouvelles. Nous ne pouvons, pour notre crédibilité, continuer à ressasser telle une litanie ces principes tout en les piétinant ou acceptant leur flagrante et constante violation. Il n'y a rien de plus corrosif de notre crédibilité qu'une telle attitude qui a conduit ces derniers temps à une véritable défiance vis-à-vis des règles et principes et fragiliser l'intégration dans une partie du continent. J'ai mentionné également le marasme persistant et paralysant de notre insupportable division en matière de représentation en relation avec nos partenariats dits stratégiques. J'appelais ici encore à choisir l'une des deux options qui s'y présentent pour nous et dont j'ai présenté clairement les termes dans ma lettre. J'avais également mentionné la question récurrente du financement de l'organisation, laquelle paradoxalement contraste avec les tendances continues de multiplication des organes sans souci de leur financement. Une organisation indépendante et gardienne de notre liberté et de notre souveraineté ne saurait se construire par le financement d'autrui. J'avais également soulevé la réduction privative d'initiative du président de la Commission de l'Union africaine et appelé à son harmonisation avec les obligations légales et coutumières qui s'imposent désormais à lui. En somme, l'essence de ma correspondance est simple et peut-être brutale. C'est la question d'être dignement ou ne pas être de notre organisation, placée devant une terrible conjugaison de facteurs de complexité. Ce sont toutes ces questions auxquelles vous faites face aujourd'hui que j'ai voulu pudiquement poser dans ma lettre. Allons-nous enfin ouvrir les yeux sur le sort de notre organisation ou alors continuer à la laisser se lamenter et gémir? Excellences, Monsieur le Président, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, c'est une vérité banale aujourd'hui d'affirmer que les concepts et les instruments juridiques servant de cadre d'analyse des dynamiques de la politique internationale contemporaine sont périmés. Ils ont perdu leur vertu à la fois structurante et explicative des phénomènes mondiaux actuels. Un tel constat explique pourquoi les débats portent aujourd'hui sur les modalités d'avènement d'une nouvelle gouvernance économique et politique mondiale. L'Afrique ne peut rester muette et inactive. Elle doit impérativement se jeter dans la bataille pour se tailler sa place propre dans les configurations en cours de recomposition. Ce n'est pas facile. Cela demandera de l'ingéniosité, de la créativité, de la méthode, du courage. Plus généralement, cela demandera une vraie rédemption pour un réveil de la conscience et de l'âme du panafricanisme. Celui de la conscience de notre africanité, celui de la fierté de notre africanité, celui de l'attachement à notre africanité, celui du rejet de notre dépersonnalisation et de notre servilité nihiliste, de notre identité et de notre être. C'est à quoi nous appelle la jeunesse africaine. Celle-ci, majoritaire dans tous nos États, est de plus en plus exigeante. Sa voix résonne de plus en plus fort grâce aux nouvelles formes de communication qui amplifient toutes les expressions. Cette jeunesse africaine nous interpelle et nous fait constamment un procès en déphasage de ses aspirations, qui sont celles d'une Afrique ouverte sur elle-même et unie, souveraine dans ses politiques et choix, debout et solidaire. Cette solidarité a toujours été notre planche de salut dans notre combat contre le colonialisme et l'apartheid et le parachèvement de notre indépendance. Nous venons de nous incliner sur la mémoire d'un de ces grands combattants, Sam Nujoma. Ça doit nous rappeler quelque chose, mesdames et messieurs. La foi dans notre solidarité panafricaine a galvanisé nos consciences, nos volontés et nos intelligences pour nous conduire vers un destin commun plus prometteur. Il n'y a pas de nouvelle voie de notre futur que d'écouter et de donner corps aux aspirations de notre jeunesse, nos concitoyens et notre diaspora. Monsieur le Président, Mesdames et Messieurs, je quitte définitivement mes fonctions dans quelques jours. J'avoue que je me sens envahi par un doux sentiment de liberté qui m'autorise ces quelques mots venant du cœur. Le premier est un mot de profonde gratitude à vos excellences pour la confiance que vous m'avez accordée en m'élisant pour 2 mandats successifs, président de la Commission de l'Union africaine. Soyez assurés que j'ai mesuré, et je mesure toujours, toutes les dimensions de cette confiance et du lourd poids de la gratitude et la reconnaissance subséquente. Le deuxième mot porte sur l'autre et moi. Dans cet autre, je pense d'abord à nos partenaires, surtout ceux qui nous ont offert une amitié sincère et une coopération mutuellement avantageuse. Je voudrais les remercier tous et leur exprimer notre gratitude. Je pense ensuite à vous ici présents, ainsi qu'à ceux qui nous ont quittés pour différentes raisons. Nous avons réalisé de bonnes et grandes choses, et surtout avons, autant que faire se peut, respecter une certaine éthique et une ligne de conduite que nous croyons conforme à nos principes et objectifs. Veuillez accepter toute ma reconnaissance. Les membres de commission de l'Union africaine, d'autres hommes et femmes ensuite, y ont travaillé, souvent dans l'ombre, avec assiduité, dévouement, discipline et talent. Je voudrais leur rendre l'hommage qu'ils méritent. Le troisième mot est relatif à mes propres limites. J'ai tant voulu faire vite et mieux au cours des 2 mandats que vous m'avez confiés. Je sais que je n'ai pas tout fait. Peut-être ai-je sous-estimé la lourdeur de la tâche et le poids des pesanteurs. Je sais que j'ai peut-être commis des erreurs. Je ne devrais peut-être pas dire peut-être. J'ai certainement commis des erreurs. Peut-être ai-je ici ou là faibli ou m'étais trompé et manqué des occasions de faire mieux. Je voudrais m'en excuser et demander pardon si mes manquements ont causé un quelconque tort individuel ou collectif. Le 4e mot est relatif à mon sentiment de l'instant. Je suis heureux de reprendre ma liberté. Mais je sais que j'aurai aussi la nostalgie des lieux, des femmes et des hommes que j'y ai connus, du peuple éthiopien à la civilisation millénaire. À vous, mon cher Dr Abiy Ahmed, Betam Amesegnalem. Peut-être faudra-t-il écrire l'histoire de tout cet enchevêtrement de sentiments et de sensations. Enfin, Mon cinquième mot est celui de mon serment, de continuer à servir, de penser à l'Afrique, à servir l'Afrique, à rêver pour elle, pour sa jeunesse à laquelle nous n'avons pas fait suffisamment et à laquelle nous devons faire beaucoup, car après tout, c'est elle qui compte aujourd'hui et davantage demain. Un mot de la fin à vous, Monsieur le Président et cher frère Mohamed Cheikh Al-Ghazouani, pour vous dire combien j'ai apprécié votre proximité tout au long de votre mandat. Vous avez été un maître de sagesse, de civisme et de hauteur, inspirant à tous égards. À vous, Monsieur le Président et cher frère João Lourenço, je me permets de souligner que la force tranquille que vous symbolisez me rassure sur une présidence en exercice de sérieux et de substance. Puissiez-vous tous les deux en particulier, et nous tous, avoir une pensée agissante pour les grands prisonniers du Sahel, le président Mohamed Bazoum, dont rien ne justifie l'interminable détention. Il doit être libéré sans condition. Plein succès à notre sommet, plein succès à notre prochain leadership. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for your statement. Thank you for your unwavering commitment. Thank you for dedication towards Africa's peace, development, and unity. Thank you very much. I will now have the honor to invite His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, to deliver his statement. Your Excellency.
Monsieur le Président de l'Union africaine, Excellences, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. President Mohamed Ould Ghazouani, thank you for your leadership in the outstanding exercise of your mandate. Presidente João Lourenço, parabéns e aguardo com expectativa a oportunidade de trabalhar consigo como novo Presidente da União Africana. I also want to give a very special expression of gratitude to the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki, for his 8 years of strong and permanent commitment to multilateralism and impeccable cooperation with the United Nations. Cher Moussa, travailler avec toi est un privilège, un plaisir et un honneur. Excellencies, the partnership between the African Union and the United Nations has never been stronger. Together, we see an Africa booming with hope and possibility. You have a booming, enterprising population, including the largest number of young people in the world. The African continental free trade is poised to turbocharge the region's economy. and calls to address the legacies of colonialism and slavery are growing louder, as reflected in your theme this year, and as reflected in the leadership of so many passionate voices for the liberation of Africa, such as the great Dr. Sam Nujoma of Namibia, whose life we celebrate and whose loss we mourn. The world must never forget that Africa is the victim of two colossal and compounded injustices. First, the profound impact of colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade. The roots stretch back centuries, and the bitter fruit continues to affect Africans and people of African descent to this day. Decolonization alone in itself was not a panacea. Political independence did not free countries from structures based on exploitation and decades of economic, social, and institutional underinvestment. It is high time for reparatory justice frameworks to be put in place. Second, Africa was under colonial domination when today's multilateral system was created, and that injustice endures. Look no further than the United Nations Security Council. There is no excuse that Africa still lacks permanent representation in the 21st century. I will keep working with the African Union and all member states to ensure the representation Africa needs and the justice you deserve, including with 2 permanent members of the Security Council. And we will keep pressing together for an international financial architecture that is no longer outdated, dysfunctional, and unfair. Correcting age-old injustices is essential to address here and now challenges. And the good news is that we have many of the solutions we need. Last year, you helped drive that effort at the United Nations with the Pact for the Future. And I thank Africa for its support that was vital to approve the Pact. Our task now is to make those commitments a reality. South Africa's G20 chairmanship could not come at a better time. Let me point to 4 areas for action. First, we must push for peace, security, and alleviating appalling levels of human suffering. Sudan is being torn apart before our eyes and is now home to the world's largest displacement crisis and famine. As we near the holy months of Ramadan, it is time for an immediate cessation of hostilities. And the international community must come together to stop the flow of weapons and the bankrolling of bloodshed. In the Democratic Republic of the Congolese people have been suffering yet again from a brutal cycle of violence. And the fighting that is raging in South Kivu as a result of the continuation of the M23 offensive threatens to push the entire region over the precipice. Regional escalation must be avoided at all costs. There is no military solution. The deadlock must end, the dialogue must begin, and the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the DRC must be respected. The conclusions of the recent joint EAC-SADC summit offer a way forward, with a renewed call for an immediate ceasefire and new momentum for regional efforts based on the Luanda and Nairobi processes. Now is the time for swift implementation. And you can count on the continued support of the United Nations, including MONUSCO. In the Sahel, the clear and present threat of terrorism is undermining peace, security, and sustainable development. And in Somalia, we are urging predictable funding for the African Union support and stabilization mission, and I hope that our voice will be heard by the Security Council. And as we gather here in Africa, I know all our minds are also very much on Gaza. A resumption of hostilities must be avoided at all costs. The Palestinian people have suffered too much. I welcome efforts by the parties to abide by the ceasefire agreement and urge action for a permanent ceasefire and release of all hostages. Peace is possible in the Middle East, and that starts with tangible, irreversible, and permanent progress towards the two-state solution, Israel and Palestine, living side by side in peace and security. Excellencies, on all fronts, we stand shoulder to shoulder with the African Union to advance security, stability, human rights, and rule of law. Excellencies, second, we must keep working together to deliver the AU 2063 agenda and the 2030 agenda for sustainable development and drive action on finance. African countries pay up to 8 times more to borrow than developed countries, and 20 are in or at risk of debt distress. The Pact for the Future supports an international financial architecture reform to reflect today's economy, ensuring fair representation and urging effective action on debt relief. And I will stand with Africa as a matter of justice and to right the historic wrongs. Excellencies, third, the climate crisis. Climate disasters are tearing across Africa, destroying lives, upending livelihoods, devastating economies, and inflaming conflict. At the same time, the renewables revolution is unstoppable, and Africa is poised to become a global clean energy powerhouse. Yet, today, Africa receives just 2% of global renewables investment. Realizing Africa's potential requires access to affordable finance, including by implementing the COP29 finance decision fully and on time, and supporting development of a roadmap to realize $1.3 trillion a year. Excellencies, Africa has contributed little to the climate crisis, yet is paying the price with record droughts, floods, and heat. Climate justice requires a massive investment in adaptation, with the international community bearing an enormous responsibility. Developed countries must double adaptation finance, and countries must significantly boost the loss and damage fund. Allow me a note. When the Loss and Damage Fund was created, the pledging conference that took place has allowed for an amount that is equivalent at the highest contract for a basketball player in the United States. It is absolutely necessary to make the Loss and Damage Fund an effective instrument to support developing countries in adaptation. And we also need justice when it comes to your abundant critical minerals. Too often, your countries are plundered, bound to the bottom of value chains as others grow rich on your resources. The work of the United Nations panel on critical energy transition minerals is designed to help embed justice, sustainability, and human rights across the value chain. Africa's minerals must benefit Africa's people. Excellences, enfin, nous devons agir dans le domaine des nouvelles technologies, notamment l'intelligence artificielle. Près de 2/3 de la population africaine sont privés d'un accès fiable à l'Internet. Nous avons une responsabilité historique, faire en sorte que l'intelligence artificielle profite à l'humanité tout entière et pas seulement à quelques privilégiés, États et compagnie. Le pacte numérique mondial partage les ambitions du pacte numérique africain. Connectivité universelle, renforcement des capacités et une gouvernance responsable de l'intelligence artificielle. Je présenterai bientôt un rapport sur les modèles innovants de financement volontaire et les initiatives de renforcement des capacités afin d'aider les pays du Sud global à exploiter l'intelligence artificielle pour le bien commun. Ensemble, assurons-nous que les promesses seront tenues. Excellences, l'Union africaine et l'ONU sont unis et déterminés à rendre justice à votre continent sans laisser personne de côté. Nous disposons de bases solides pour aller de l'avant. Alors, ensemble, concrétisons ces engagements. Et permettez-moi de dire une dernière phrase dans ma langue maternelle. Digamos com uma só voz, viva África!
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your statement. We highly appreciate your leadership in strengthening the African Union-United Nations partnership. Thank you. السيدات والسادة أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي، يسعدني ويشرفني أن أرحب اليوم بفخامة السيد الرئيس محمود عباس أبو مازن رئيس دولة فلسطين، فلتتفضلوا مشكورين بإلقاء كلمتكم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فخامة الرئيس محمد ولد الغزواني رئيس جمهورية موريتانيا، رئيس القمة الإفريقية، دولة رئيس الوزراء الأثيوبي السيد آبي أحمد، معالي السيد محموسة فكي رئيس مفوضية الاتحاد الإفريقي، معالي السيد أنطونيو غوتيريش الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة، أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نود في البداية أن نقدم التهنئة لفخامة الرئيس جواو لورينسو رئيس جمهورية أنغولا على توليه رئاسة الاتحاد الإفريقي للعام 2025، متمنين له التوفيق والنجاح، والشكر موصول لفخامة الرئيس محمد ولد الغزواني على رئاسته للدورة السابقة للاتحاد. ويسعدني أن ألتقي بكم مجددا وباسم الشعب الفلسطيني الذي يحمل في قلبه تقديرا عميقا لشعوب وقيادات دول إفريقيا التي نفتخر بصداقتها، والتي كانت ولا تزال داعما مخلصا لنضالنا العادل من أجل الحرية والاستقلال. القادة ورؤساء الوفود، في الوقت الذي نعمل فيه ومعنا دول العالم ومنظماته الدولية لتثبيت وقف إطلاق النار وتقديم المزيد من المساعدات الإنسانية وتولي دولة فلسطين مهامها في قطاع غزة ومساعدة النازحين للعودة إلى مناطقهم وتأمين مقومات الحياة لشعبنا الأصيل في قطاع غزة والتجهيز لإعادة الإعمار. تخرج علينا دعوات لانتزاع شعبنا من أرضه وتهجيره والمساس بسيادة دول أخرى، دعوات هدفها إلهاء العالم عن جرائم الحرب والإبادة الجماعية والتدمير في غزة وجرائم الاستيطان والمستوطنين وسرقة الأرض الفلسطينية ومحاولات ضمها والاعتداء على المقدسات في الضفة والقدس والتي تقوم بها قوات الاحتلال وعصابات المستوطنين الإرهابيين بهدف تقويض حل الدولتين وإضعاف السلطة الوطنية الفلسطينية. اليوم يعيش في قطاع غزة 2,300,000 فلسطيني، منهم 1,500,000 نصف المليون لاجئ، 1,500,000 لجأوا الذين طردوا من أرضهم في عام 48 وتعرضوا خلالها إلى أكثر من 50 مجزرة على أيدي العصابات الصهيونية الإرهابية. والمكان الوحيد إذا أراد الأمريكان حلا، المكان الوحيد الذي يجب عودتهم إليه هو مدنهم وقراهم التي هجروا منها إبان النكبة تنفيذا للقرار الأممي 194 الذي يدعو إلى عودة اللاجئين الفلسطينيين إلى مدنهم وقراهم التي هجروا منها وتعويضهم عن كامل الأضرار التي ألحقت بهم. إننا نؤكد على رفضنا الكامل والمطلق لأية دعوات تهدف لتهجير شعبنا الفلسطيني من وطنه، والتي من شأنها إبقاء المنطقة في دائرة العنف بدلا من الذهاب لصنع السلام. وسيكون واهما من يعتقد أنه بإمكانه فرض صفقة قرن جديدة التي أطلقت قبل سنوات أو تهجير شعبنا والاستيلاء على أي شبر من أرضنا. ونقدر في هذا الصدد مواقف كل الدول التي رفضت دعوات تهجير شعبنا من وطنه ووقفت إلى جانب حقه في أرضه، مثمنين عاليا موقف الاتحاد الإفريقي ودوله الأعضاء في هذا الشأن. إن هذه الممارسات الاستعمارية الإسرائيلية تتطلب إجراءات عاجلة من المجتمع الدولي ومجلس الأمن قبل تفشي قوى التطرف التي تعمل على دفن حل الدولتين. القادة ورؤساء الوفود، إن قضيتنا الفلسطينية هي قضية عدل لشعب يسعى للحرية والاستقلال، وإن التزامنا بالشرعية الدولية والاتفاقات الموقعة بما فيها تنفيذ الرؤية المبنية على حل الدولتين يقضي بإنهاء الاحتلال الإسرائيلي الذي يسيطر بالقوة العسكرية على أرض دولة فلسطين بعاصمتها القدس الشرقية على خطوط العام 67. هذا ما قررته الشرعية الدولية وقرار مجلس الأمن 242338 وتنفيذ مبادرة السلام العربية لتعيش جميع شعوب المنطقة في أمن وسلام وحسن جوار، وهو الأمر الذي يأتي تنفيذا للرأي الاستشاري لمحكمة العدل الدولية الذي نص على عدم قانونية الاحتلال وضرورة إنهائه، وحدد الوقت في خلال 12 شهرا. المحكمة الدولية قررت 12 شهر يجب عليه أن ينتهي وفق قرار الجمعية العامة للأمم المتحدة وعقد مؤتمر الأطراف السامية المتعاقدة على اتفاقية جنيف الشهر المقبل. وندعو بهذه المناسبة دول الاتحاد الأفريقي للمشاركة في هذا المؤتمر الهام. القادة ورؤساء الوفود، إن تحقيق الأمن والاستقرار الدوليين يتطلب من الجميع المشاركة الفاعلة في التحالف العالمي لتنفيذ حل الدولتين ودعم المؤتمر الدولي للسلام المقرر عقده في الأمم المتحدة في منتصف يونيو القادم برئاسة مشتركة للمملكة العربية السعودية وفرنسا، والذي يشكل فرصة لحشد الطاقات الدولية للاعتراف الدولي بدولة فلسطين والحصول على العضوية الكاملة في الأمم المتحدة. لم نحصل على العضوية الكاملة بسبب قرارات الفيتو الأمريكية، نحن مراقبون في الأمم المتحدة، وتنفيذ حل الدولتين المبني على الشرعية الدولية. إن انعقاد القمة الإفريقية تحت عنوان العدالة للأفارقة والأشخاص من أجل الإفريقي من خلال التعويضات يعكس التزامكم الأصيل بالعدالة كقيمة إنسانية عالمية، وهو التزام نرى صداه في دعمكم الدائم للشعب الفلسطيني الذي لا زال يرزح تحت الاستعمار الوحيد المتبقي من مخلفات الاستعمار البغيض. نحن وحدنا في كل العالم، وحدنا لازلنا تحت الاحتلال الذي عاشته شعوبكم. أنتم وقعتم والحمد لله تحررتم وتحررتم منه. ختاما نجدد شكرنا للاتحاد الافريقي ودوله الاعضاء على دعمهم الثابت لنضال الشعب الفلسطيني لنيل حريته واستقلاله، متمنين النجاح والتوفيق لاعمال قمتكم ومستقبلا مشرقا للقاره الافريقيه وشعوبها الحره. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
شكرا فخامة رئيس دولة فلسطين أبو مازن على خطابكم الضافي. إن مشاركتكم اليوم فخامة الرئيس تؤكد من جديد مناصرة ودعم الاتحاد الإفريقي للقضية الفلسطينية بكل قوة وعزم. I now have the honor to invite His Excellency Mohammed 𝙏𝙝𝙖𝙣𝙠 𝙔𝙤𝙬, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania and Chairperson of the African Union, to deliver his opening remarks. Excellency.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد. أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي رؤساء الدول والحكومات، صاحب الفخامة السيد أبي أحمد رئيس الوزراء لجمهورية إثيوبيا الاتحادية الديمقراطية، معالي السيد مصطفى محمد معالي رئيس مفوضية الاتحاد الإفريقي، معالي السيد أنطونيو غوتيريش الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة، فخامة الرئيس محمود عباس رئيس السلطة الفلسطينية، معالي السيدة ميا موتلي رئيسة الوزراء لجمهورية بربادوس، السادة والسيدات رؤساء الوفود، السادة والسيدات الوزراء، السادة والسيدات السفراء، السادة والسيدات ضيوفنا الكرام، أود بداية أن أتوجه بجزيل الشكر للحكومة والشعب الإثيوبيين على ما اتخذوه من إجراءات لتسهيل التنظيم لمحكم لقمتنا هذه، وعلى ما أحطنا به ونحاط به دائما من عناية فائقة وكرم ضيافة أصيل في هذه المدينة العريقة، موطن ميلاد منظمتنا التي تشكل التعبير المؤسسي الأسمى عن طموحات الآباء المؤسسين وتطلعات شعوبنا الإفريقية إلى قيام إفريقيا موحدة آمنة مستقرة ومزدهرة. كما يطيب لي أن أجدد الشكر لإخوتي رؤساء الدول والحكومات الإفريقية على ما شرفوني به من رئاسة الاتحاد الإفريقي برسم السنة المنصرمة، مقدرا لهم ما منحوني إياه من قوي الدعم ودائم المساندة خلال تأديتي لهذه المهمة الجليلة. وأتوجه بنفس الشكر الجزيل إلى رؤساء الدول والحكومات والهيئات الدولية الذين حضروا بدعوة منا ليشاركونا هذا الحدث السنوي الهام في بداية سنة 2025 التي تؤشر لحقبة تحمل الكثير من الشكوك والقلق والتساؤلات. أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي، أيها السادة والسيدات، لقد صادف تشرفنا باستلام الرئاسة الدورية للاتحاد الإفريقي ظرفا دوليا وقاريا بالغ الحساسية والصعوبة، لكنه في الوقت ذاته صادف اعتماد خطتنا العشرية الثانية في سياق تنفيذ أجندة 2063، والتي تمثل الإطار العام للخطط التنموية متوسطة المدى للدول الأعضاء والمجموعات الاقتصادية الإقليمية ومختلف أجهزة الاتحاد الإفريقي. وفي اعتماد هذه الخطة العشرية دلالة جلية على صلابة إرادتنا المشتركة في تحقيق تطلعات شعوبنا إلى قيام إفريقيا التي نريدها جميعا، مهما كثرت العوائق ومهما عظمت التحديات، وإنها بحق لعظيمة. وقد كنت أوان تسلم قيادة الاتحاد الإفريقي على أتم الوعي بحجم المهمة وحساسية الظرف. فعالمنا اليوم تتصاعد فيه الأزمات المتنوعة، وتتسع فيه فضاءات التنازع، وتتكاثر بؤار التوتر بشكل هز علاقات الدول بعضها ببعض، كما هز القيم والمبادئ التي تأسس عليها النظام الدولي منذ نهاية الحرب العالمية الثانية. فبعد فترة من الهدوء ومن انتعاش المنظمات الدولية ومن الإيمان بعالم أكثر سلاما، تصدعت المرجعيات وتلاشت الآمال بعضها تلو البعض الآخر، وبدأت إعادة صياغة تدريجية للنظام الدولي بنحو لم تتضح بعد معالمه ولا مآلاته، ومنذ سنوات لم تتوقف مع الأسف إراقة الدماء، ووجد الكثير من الناس أنفسهم في وضع إنساني استعجالي. وعرف العالم مستوى من العنف والهمجية لم يشهد له نظيرا منذ الحرب العالمية الثانية، وفيما تعرضت وتتعرض له فلسطين المحتلة أوضح مصداق على ذلك. ويعقد هذا المشهد الدولي العام ويزيده قتامة ما فشى في قارتنا من حروب ونزاعات وعنف وتطرف وإرهاب. وإن لهذه الأزمات كلها القاري منها والدولي تأثيرا سلبيا عميقا على الجهود الإنمائية لقارتنا الإفريقية، التي تتشابك فيها أصلا تحديات جسيمة من قبيل الفقر والبطالة وضعف المنظومات الصحية والتعليمية وهشاشة البنية الاقتصادية عموما، ناهيك عن الآثار المدمرة للتغيرات المناخية وتفشي الإرهاب والنزاعات المسلحة التي تنسف الأمن والاستقرار وتفكك الأنسجة الاجتماعية وتلحق بالغ الضرر بالظروف المعيشية للسكان. وقد التزمنا في خطاب اختتام الدورة 37 لمؤتمر رؤساء الدول وحكومات الاتحاد الإفريقي بالعمل بجد على رفع مختلف هذه التحديات، فعملنا طوال فترة ولايتنا في احترام تام لنظم الاتحاد ولتناسق تناغم مؤسساته، وكذلك في انسجام كلي مع المفوضية والجماعات الاقتصادية الإقليمية والآليات الإقليمية على مواصلة وتعزيز جهود السلام وحل النزاعات بالطرق التفاوضية السليمة، بدعمنا مثلا الجهود القيمة التي يقوم بها صاحب الفخامة داني ساسو نجسو على رأس لجنة الاتحاد الإفريقي رفيعة المستوى حول ليبيا، وبالاتصال المنتظم مع صاحبي الفخامة بول كاغامي وفيليس تشيكيسيدي سعيا منا إلى وقف العنف والنزاع في جمهورية الكونغو الديمقراطية، وكذلك باحتضاننا في الجمهورية الإسلامية الموريتانية في 18 من دجنبر 2024 أعمال الاجتماع التشاوري الثالث لتعزيز تنسيق مبادرة جهود السلام في السودان، وباستقبالنا الفريق أول عبد الفتاح البرهان رئيس مجلس السيادة الانتقالية في السودان يومي 13 و 14 يناير 2025 في نواكشوط للتداول معه حول ضرورة وقف أعمال العنف في السودان وصون سلامة شعبه وحوزته الترابية. وعلى الرغم من جهود الاتحاد والمجموعات الإقليمية وآحاد الدول الأعضاء، لا يزال قيام السلام الشامل والمستديم بقارتنا هدفا ينتظر التحقق. وإنني إذ أدعو إلى تنفيذ القرارات الجريئة التي اتخذتها قمة مالابو الاستثنائية في مايو 2022 لمعتقد حقا بضرورة مساءلة هيكل السلم والأمن الإفريقي في اتجاهات 4: التناغم واستدامة التمويل والتفعيل والشمول، وكذلك من حيث ملائمته لطبيعة التحديات الأمنية الراهنة والتغيرات اللادستورية الطارئة. فمن شأن ذلك أن يتيح لنا فرصة استكشاف أساليب أكثر نجاعة في مواجهة تحدي السلام والأمن والاستقرار بإيجاد الآليات المناسبة التي تمكن من الحل السلمي للنزاعات، وهو ما يشكل في الوقت ذاته واجبا أخلاقيا ومسؤولية جماعية. ونحن في هذا السياق بحاجة لجهود كل منا وجهودنا مجتمعين في هبة عامة ضمن جهد جماعي منسق وشامل لرفع هذا التحدي. أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي، أيها السيدات والسادة، لقد أولينا بالغ العناية للأجندة التنموية طوال مأموريتنا بسعينا المستمر لحشد المزيد من التمويلات لتلبية الحاجات التنموية القارية المتعاظمة، وذلك من خلال تنظيمنا أو مشاركتنا في العديد من القمم. فقد نظمنا مع صاحب الفخامة السيد ويليام صامويل روتو في إبريل 2024 قمة نيروبي لدعم دورة التمويل 21 للمؤسسة الدولية للتنمية. وعززنا عملية الدعم هذه مع صاحب الفخامة ألاسان واترا أثناء القمة الاقتصادية رفيعة المستوى التي انعقدت بأبيجان أكتوبر 2024، ومثلت لحظة هامة في عملية التجديد 21 لموارد هذه المؤسسة. وقد أسفرت جهود الدعم والمناصرة هذه عن تجديد موارد المؤسسة الدولية للتنمية بمستوى غير مسبوق وصل 100 مليار دولار. كما شاركنا في أعمال القمة الإفريقية الكورية، وحصلنا خلالها على زيادة كبيرة في الأموال الكورية الموجهة نحو المساعدة الإنمائية، والتي ارتفع حجمها بالنسبة لإفريقيا من 5.5 مليار دولار إلى 10 مليارات دولار، علاوة على مبلغ 14 مليار دولار مخصصة لتمويل الصادرات دعما للشركات المستثمرة في قارتنا. ينضاف لذلك ما أسفرت عنه النسخة الرابعة من قمة التعاون الصيني الإفريقي على مستوى الرؤساء من إعلان تخصيص جمهورية الصين الشعبية 50 مليار دولار لدفع عجلة التنمية في قارتنا. وبالموازاة مع الجهد المبذول في سبيل تعبئة الموارد، حرصنا خلال مشاركتنا في قمة مجموعة السبع بإيطاليا في يونيو 2024، وقمة مجموعة بريكس في روسيا الاتحادية أكتوبر 2024، وقمة مجموعة العشرين في البرازيل نوفمبر 2024، وغيرها من المحافل الأخرى، على تأكيد ضرورة حل مشكل المديونية التي تعيق بقوة جهودنا التنموية، وعلى مراجعة نظام المساعدة العمومية الإنمائية القائم لقصوره عن تحقيق الأهداف المبتغاة منه، مطالبين باستحداث ميثاق جديد لتمويل التنمية يكون أكثر مرونة واستدامة، ويضمن للدول الأقل نموا نفاذا سلسا ومنصفا لتمويلات تناسب أولوياتها. كما دأبنا على المطالبة بتحسين تمثيل القارة في المؤسسات المالية المعددة الأطراف لضمان مراعاة حاجاتها الإنمائية الملحة في الأجندة التنموية في الأجندة الدولية. وإن الغاية من العمل على تعبئة الموارد في الأساس دفع عجلة التنمية لتعزيز قدرة قارتنا على تحويل إمكاناتها ومواردها الهائلة إلى تنمية مستديمة فعلية ترفع التحديات التي تواجهها والتي عمقتها الأزمات الاقتصادية والأمنية والصحية والمناخية. وفي هذا السياق، وعملا بما تقرر من اتخاذ بناء أنظمة تعليمية مرنة لزيادة الوصول إلى التعليم الشامل والمستمر والجيد الملائم في إفريقيا، شعارا للقمة برسم السنة المنصرمة، نظمنا في الجمهورية الإسلامية الموريتانية وبالتعاون مع لجنة الاتحاد الإفريقي مؤتمرا قاريا حول التهذيب والشباب وقابلية التشغيل في ديسمبر الماضي بنواكشوط. وكان الهدف من دمج التعليم والشباب وقابلية التشغيل في إشكالية واحدة، التركيز على فئة تشكل ثلثي سكان القارة، فئة الشباب المعرضة لمخاطر البطالة والعنف والتطرف والانحراف وللهجرة غير النظامية كما لهجرة الأدمغة. وإنني لأدعو القمة لاعتماد إعلان نواكشوط بما يرسمه من آفاق لتعليم يكون دعامة تنموية مستدامة ورافدا قويا للأمن والاستقرار وخلق فرص العمل الملائمة، تقليصا لدوائر البطالة والفقر والهشاشة. وكما يحتاج الشباب الإفريقي إلى نظام تعليمي وتكويني فعال، فإنه يحتاج كذلك مثل كل مواطن إفريقي عموما إلى منظومات صحية تؤمن نفاذا شاملا لخدمات صحية جيدة وتكون قادرة على الصمود في وجه الحوائج والصدمات الصحية الطارئة كالتي شهدتها القارة مؤخرا، مثل جدري القردة وماربول والكوليرا. وأود في هذا المقام التنويه بالإدارة الاستباقية التي واجه بها المركز الإفريقي لمكافحة الأمراض والوقاية منها في إفريقيا ما استجد مؤخرا من صدمات صحية مفاجئة، مهنئا الدكتور 𝙏𝙝𝙖𝙣𝙠 وفريقه على العمل الرائع الذين يقومون به في هذا الإطار. وسأتشرف اليوم أمامكم بتقديم تقرير مفصل بهذا الخصوص بحول الله وقوته. أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي أيها السادة والسيدات، انسجاما مع إعلان داكار حول السيادة الغذائية ومع الوثيقة المنبثقة عن قمة إفريقيا والولايات المتحدة، نظمنا قمتين استثنائيتين في سبيل تعزيز المنظومات في قبيل تعزيز المنظومات الزراعية. انعقدت أولاهما في نيروبي في مايو 2024 وتعلقت بصحة التربة والأسمدة، والثانية في يناير 2025 بكامبالا، خصصت لبناء أنظمة زراعية غذائية مرنة ومستدامة في إفريقيا، واعتمدت خلالها استراتيجية وخطة عمل التنمية الزراعية الشاملة في إفريقيا للفترة 2026-2035. وإنني لأوصي القمة بتبني إعلان كامبالا بمكونتيه الاستراتيجية وخطة العمل، وكذلك إعلان نيروبي بشأن الأسمدة وصحة التربة لصالح الإنتاج الغذائي المستدام وتحفيز الاستثمار وبناء زراعة صناعية. ومعلوم أن النهوض بقطاع إنتاجي كالزراعة، خاصة في البعد الصناعي منه، يستلزم توفر طاقة نظيفة بالكمية الكافية وبالتكلفة الملائمة. وسعيا إلى تحقيق هذا الهدف، نظمنا في دار السلام مع صاحبة الفخامة السيدة سامية صلوحو، وبالتنسيق مع مجموعتي البنك الإفريقي للتنمية والبنك الدولي في يناير المنصرم، القمة الإفريقية حول الطاقة المهمة 300 من أجل ضمان النفاذ إلى الكهرباء لصالح 300 مليون مواطن إفريقي في جنوب الصحراء. وقد تم خلال القمة عرض التعهدات الطاقوية الوطنية للعديد من الدول الإفريقية، وإنني لحريص في هذا الإطار على تقديم التهنئة والشكر الجزيل لرئيس البنك الإفريقي للتنمية السيد أكويميني أديسينا، وكذلك لرئيس مجموعة البنك الدولي السيد أجاي بانغا على ما حرص عليه من توحيد الجهود في إطار هذه الشراكة الطموحة، وكذلك على ما دأب عليه من دعم وموازرة للجهد التنموي الإفريقي. ثم إن للطاقة دورا أساسا في التحديات البيئية التي تلحق بالغ الضرر بمجموعاتنا الإفريقية، على الرغم من ضآلة مساهمتنا في الاحتباس الحراري وحجم جهودنا الكبيرة في إحراز تحول طاقوي تدريجي وعادل. ولذا ركزنا باسمكم جميعا خلال الدورة 29 لمؤتمر الأطراف في اتفاقية الأمم المتحدة الإطارية بشأن تغير المناخ الكوب 29 المنعقدة في باكو نوفمبر 2024 على ضرورة تحمل المجتمع الدولي مسؤوليته ولزوم دعمه لقدرتنا على مواجهة الآثار الهدامة للتغيرات المناخية. أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي أيها السادة والسيدات، إن تحقيق أهداف خطة العمل الثانية لتنفيذ أجندة 2063 يرتبط كثيرا بقوة وعمق التنسيق ما بين الاتحاد الإفريقي والمجموعات الاقتصادية الإقليمية والآليات الإقليمية. ولذا ركزنا خلال اجتماع التنسيق نصف السنوي بآكرا يوليو 2024 على ضرورة دمج الخطط الوطنية في البرامج القارية توطيدا لتكامل القارة وتعزيزا لوحدة صوتها دوليا. ووحدة الصوت هذه هي ما سيمكننا من أن نتبوأ المكانة التي تسمح لنا بالإسهام الفعال في صياغة جداول الأعمال الدولية على نحو يجعلها أكثر تركيزا على قضايانا الإفريقية الحساسة. ولذا دافعنا في كل المحافل عن حق القارة في التمثيل المناسب في مجلس الأمن وفي المؤسسات المالية المتعددة الأطراف، وعن ضرورة إعادة صياغة قواعد الحكامة الدولية وتعزيز التعاون المتعدد الأطراف. وقد لاقت جهود المناصرة هذه أصداء إيجابية والتزامات صريحة بالعمل بمقتضاها في مختلف القمم والمؤتمرات، غير أن النجاعة في متابعة هذه الالتزامات بل وفي العمل الإفريقي المشترك عموما تقتضي مواصلة الإصلاح الهيكلي لمنظمتنا. وأنتم تعلمون جميعا ما أثارته قضية تنفيذ الإصلاح الهيكلي من تساؤلات بين الدول الأعضاء بخصوص مسائل كثيرة من قبيل تطبيق مبدأ التناوب وتاريخ دخوله حيز التنفيذ وتوزيع المرشحين للمناصب التنفيذية وغيرها. ونظرا لخطورة وإلحاح الوضع عقدنا دورة استثنائية للمجلس التنفيذي في مارس 2024 اتخذ خلالها قرار يحدد بشكل دقيق كيفية تطبيق مبدأ التناوب وتحديد المناطق المؤهلة لوظائف القيادة المختلفة ضمانا للتناوب العادل والمتوازن بين المناطق. وانسجاما مع هذا النفس الإصلاحي عملنا على ملف مراجعة المهارات وتقييم القدرات داخل مفوضية الاتحاد الإفريقي. فتم تنظيم اجتماع استثنائي آخر للمجلس التنفيذي شهر نوفمبر 2024 لاتخاذ القرار بشأن أفضل السبل لإتمام هذه العملية. وبعد مداولات مستفيضة اعتمد المجلس قرارا يوفر حلا لهذه القضية ويضع خارطة طريق واضحة لاستكمال هذه العملية. أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي أيها السادة والسيدات، لقد أكدت في خطاب التسلمي للرئاسة على أن تجاوز العوائق ورفع التحديات لا يكون إلا بالاتحاد وصهر الجهود الذين تستوجبه قيمنا المشتركة ويمليه إدراكنا لوحدة المصير ويقضي به حجم الرهان ويستلزمه سمو الغاية التي نسعى إليها جميعا. وإنني لأجدد التأكيد على ذات الأمر وأنا أسلم اليوم الرئاسة لأخي صاحب الفخام جاو لورينسو متمنيا له التوفيق والنجاح في المهمة الجسيمة التي أوكلت إلى فخامته معربا عن دائم استعدادي لدعمه ومؤازرته. ولا يفوتني هنا أن أعرب عن عظيم تقديري لأخي مسافق محمد رئيس مفوضية الاتحاد الإفريقي مشيدا بخصاله القيادية وشاكرا له دعمه الدائم ومساندته القيمة طيلة هذه المأمورية ومتوجها بذات الشكر والتقدير لكافة أفراد المفوضية ومختلف أجهزة الاتحاد. أنا معتز وفخور لما أتيح لي خلال هذه المأمورية من خدمة قارتنا الإفريقية وحمل صوتها والدفاع عنها في كل المنابر والمحافل. وإنني أختم هذه المأمورية وأنا أعمق إيمانا بقدرة قارتنا الإفريقية على تحقيق أهداف الأجندة 2063 وأقوى عزما وإرادة على المشاركة الفعالة في ذلك. وأجدد التهنئة لأخي صاحب الفخامة جواو لورينسو لا أرجو له ولأعمال قمتنا هذه كل التوفيق والنجاح. عاش الاتحاد الإفريقي وعاشت إفريقيا حرة شامخة ومزدهرة. أشكركم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
شكرا فخامة الرئيس على كلمتكم. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, now allow me to invite His Excellency Ambassador Yusuf Mundoha Asumani, Ambassador of the Union of Comoros to Ethiopia and Permanent Representative to the African Union, Dean of the African Ambassadors in Ethiopia, to introduce the new Bureau of the African Union Assembly for this session. Your Excellency.
Excellence Mohamed Ould Cheikh Al-Ghazouani, Président en exercice de l'Union africaine et président de la République islamique de Mauritanie, Excellence, M. Abiy Ahmed, Premier ministre de la République fédérale démocratique d'Éthiopie, Excellence, Messieurs et Madame les chefs d'État de l'Union africaine, Excellence, Monsieur Mahmoud Abbas, président de l'État de la Palestine, Excellence, Madame la première vice-présidente de la République de Barbados, Premier ministre de la République de Barbados, Excellence, Monsieur Antonio Guterres, secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Excellence, Monsieur Moussa Faki Mahamat, président de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Excellence, Monsieur le secrétaire général adjoint de la Ligue des États arabes, Excellences, Mesdames les chefs des délégations, Excellences, Messieurs les ambassadeurs, représentants permanents et observateurs des États, Excellences, Messieurs et Madame, Excellences, Messieurs et Madame les chefs des organes de l'Union africaine, chers invités, à vos rangs et grades. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. J'ai l'insolent honneur de vous présenter le bureau de la conférence pour l'année 2025, conformément à l'article 16 du règlement de la conférence. Le bureau se compose comme suit. Président, la République d'Angola, Afrique australe. Premier vice-président, la République de Burundi, Afrique centrale. Deuxième vice-président, la République du Ghana, Afrique de l'Ouest. Rapporteur, troisième vice-président, Jamhuri ya Muungano ya Tanzania, Afrique centrale. Afrique de l'Est, Samahan. Rapporteur, la République islamique de Mauritanie, l'Afrique du Nord. Tel a été proposé pour votre approbation et je vous remercie.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and congratulations for the new elected Bureau. I have the honor now to invite Excellency Mohammed 𝙏𝙝𝙖𝙣 𝙁𝙤𝙧, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, to deliver his handover speech. Your Excellency, please.
Je voudrais remercier mes chers collègues chefs d'État et de gouvernement, membres de la conférence, de m'avoir porté à la tête de l'Union africaine comme président en exercice au titre de l'année 2024-2025. Durant cette période, nous avons ensemble œuvré à faire avancer l'agenda du développement et de l'intégration de l'Afrique. Je tiens à vous remercier pour le soutien et vous remercier pour l'accompagnement sans faille qui ont contribué au succès de la Mauritanie et de l'Afrique dans l'exécution de cette noble tâche. Je vais vous demander de me permettre maintenant d'inviter mon frère, le président João Lourenço, pour la passation du témoin et lui souhaite beaucoup de succès et de réussite. Je vous invite, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And now I have the honor to welcome His Excellency João Manuel Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola, the new chairperson of the African Union, for the handover ceremony in the High Table. You are welcome, Your Excellency.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Your Excellency. Allow me now to call His Excellency João Manuel Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola, Chairperson of the African Union, to deliver his acceptance speech. Your Excellency.
Sua Majestade Swati III do Reino de Swatini, Sua Majestade Letsi III do Reino do Lesoto, Sua Excelência Mohamed Ould Ghazouani, Presidente da República Islâmica da Mauritânia e Presidente cessante da União Africana, Suas Excelências Chefes de Estado e de Governo, Sua Excelência Abiy Ahmed Ali, Primeiro-Ministro da República Democrática Federal da Etiópia e anfitrião da conferência, Sua Excelência António Guterres, Secretário-Geral das Nações Unidas, Suas Excelências representantes de chefes de Estado e de Governo, Sua Excelência Moussa Faki Mahamat, Presidente da Comissão da União Africana, membros, Sua Excelência Presidente Mahmoud Abbas, Presidente da Autoridade Palestina, nosso convidado de honra, excelentíssimos membros do corpo diplomático acreditado em Addis Abeba, Excelências, minhas senhoras, meus senhores. Gostaria de manifestar a minha mais profunda gratidão à Sua Excelência Abiy Ahmed Ali, Primeiro-Ministro da República Democrática Federal da Etiópia, e ao povo etíope, por uma vez mais, tal como ocorre no mês de fevereiro de cada ano, albergarem a sessão ordinária da conferência da mais importante organização do continente africano, pela calorosa recepção e excepcional hospitalidade reservada a todas as delegações desde a nossa chegada a este belo país. Agradeço igualmente a Sua Excelência Mohamed Ould Ghazouani, Presidente da República Islâmica da Mauritânia e Presidente cessante da União Africana, pela forma notável, dinâmica e proativa com que dirigiu a nossa organização durante este último exercício. Foram desenvolvidas durante o seu mandato ações que contribuíram de forma apreciável para a realização dos principais objetivos definidos pela nossa organização para o ano que terminou, como o de se apostar na construção de sistemas educativos pujantes, de modo a permitir o acesso à educação de qualidade a todos os cidadãos africanos, tendo em vista a melhoria do desempenho do continente a nível global, em conformidade com os objetivos preconizados na Agenda 2063 da União Africana e com os da Agenda 2030 das Nações Unidas. Vossa Excelência deixa-nos um grande legado, cabendo-nos a responsabilidade de trabalhar no sentido de valorizar e potenciar ao máximo o trabalho por si realizado, pelo que conto para este efeito com o apoio e experiência do Sr. Presidente e o dos outros Estados-membros da União Africana, de modo a que a República de Angola possa levar por diante uma presidência que vá ao encontro das expectativas dos cidadãos do nosso continente e ajude a acrescentar mais um passo no caminho que percorremos para se alcançar o objetivo do desenvolvimento socioeconômico de nossos países, a concretização da Agenda 2063 no quadro de todas as ações e esforços que empreendemos para construir a África que queremos. Os meus agradecimentos estendem-se a cada Estado-membro da União Africana, especialmente aos da África Austral, região onde estamos inseridos, pela confiança depositada em Angola para presidir neste ano de 2025 a União Africana, numa altura em que o nosso continente se depara com imensos problemas ligados à paz e segurança, que constituem um fator de bloqueio a todas as iniciativas e ações que procuramos levar a cabo em benefício do desenvolvimento das nossas nações. Como é do conhecimento de todos, é a primeira vez que a República de Angola assume esta importante responsabilidade de conduzir os destinos do nosso continente nos próximos 12 meses, o que me levará a olhar com atenção para os principais problemas de África e colocar ao serviço da nossa organização a nossa experiência na busca de soluções para as questões relativas à paz e segurança e cuidar da implementação pelos Estados-membros das políticas econômicas e sociais que promovam o progresso e o desenvolvimento do nosso continente. Tem para nós um significado muito especial o facto de assumirmos a presidência pro tempore da União Africana neste ano 2025, em que Angola comemora 50 anos da sua independência nacional. Excelências, minhas senhoras, meus senhores, no decurso desta conferência serão debatidas questões de grande relevo para a organização, funcionamento e crescimento da União Africana, bem como para a operacionalização de um modo prático da questão relativa à justiça para os africanos e os afrodescendentes por meio de reparações, que constitui o lema escolhido para este ano, e também o que Angola elegeu para a sua presidência, que está centrado na importância do investimento nas infraestruturas como fator de desenvolvimento de África. A conjugação destes dois aspectos pode levar-nos a construir um canal de comunicação e de diálogo com os nossos parceiros internacionais que os faça compreender a importância e vantagem de cooperar com uma África desenvolvida, industrializada, com capacidade para superar a fome, a pobreza, a miséria e o desemprego, reduzindo assim a probabilidade de conflitos armados e de imigrantes ilegais junto às suas fronteiras. Teremos a oportunidade de abordar estas questões na 4ª Conferência Internacional sobre o Financiamento para o Desenvolvimento, a ter lugar em Sevilha, Espanha, de 30 de junho a 4 de julho do corrente ano, por constituir uma oportunidade histórica para se redefinirem as regras de financiamento global baseadas na justiça econômica e na inclusão. Tendo em conta os compromissos assumidos em conferências anteriores, mas nem sempre cumpridos, designadamente o Consenso de Monterrey, a Declaração de Doha e a Agenda de Ação da Addis Abeba, a 4ª Conferência de Sevilha, visa responder aos desafios persistentes que se verificam no financiamento para o desenvolvimento e favorecer a adoção de soluções inovadoras e eficazes. Temas como a justiça fiscal, o alívio da dívida, o financiamento climático, as reformas nas instituições financeiras globais e a inclusão social devem merecer a nossa atenção para que seja adotada uma posição comum que garanta ao continente o reforço da sua influência na governação financeira global, uma redução dos custos do endividamento e o acesso aos recursos necessários para alcançar um desenvolvimento sustentável. A concretização destes objetivos criará seguramente sinergias que vão dinamizar e ampliar as trocas comerciais, o intercâmbio cultural, técnico, tecnológico, científico e noutras áreas que poderão produzir vantagens significativas para todas as partes. Acreditamos que nas perspectivas que traçamos para os nossos países, enquanto governantes, incluímos programas a serem executados com um grande sentido de prioridade no domínio das infraestruturas fundamentais, designadamente as vias rodoviárias e ferroviárias, os portos e aeroportos, as centrais de produção de energia elétrica e respectivas linhas de transportação e distribuição, absolutamente indispensáveis para a industrialização do nosso continente e a melhoria das condições de vida das nossas populações. No decurso da presidência pro tempore da União Africana, que passamos a exercer a partir de hoje, pretendemos lançar, em articulação com todos os membros desta nossa instituição, um vasto plano de atração de investimentos e de captação de recursos financeiros significativos junto dos nossos grandes parceiros internacionais, para que a Comissão da União Africana estabeleça as bases e defina os projetos de infraestruturas a serem realizados. Destaco o contributo que Angola poderá prestar ao desenvolvimento de África, colocando ao dispor o excedente energético que tem para a mitigação das necessidades de vários países neste domínio da energia. Pela relevância e importância estratégica que assume no quadro da transportação de produtos diversos e também no do comércio intra-africano e no de África com o resto do mundo, gostaria de destacar a importância do corredor de Lubito e dos caminhos de ferro tanzanianos Tazara, que poderão desempenhar um papel incontornável na interconexão entre os países africanos e na promoção do comércio que pretendemos realizar no âmbito da Zona de Comércio Livre Continental Africana. Tendo em vista o que referi anteriormente, considero que devemos ter uma estratégia bem definida para colhermos benefícios significativos do facto de a União Africana integrar o G20, o que constitui uma conquista essencial para garantir que o nosso continente seja parte ativa das decisões econômicas globais. Excelências, minhas senhoras, meus senhores, as linhas estratégicas da presidência angolana estão alinhadas em termos gerais com as ações prioritárias definidas a nível continental, no âmbito da aceleração do segundo Plano Decenal da Implementação da Agenda 2063, correspondente ao período de 2024 a 2033, centradas nas infraestruturas de transporte e conectividade, energia e recursos naturais, paz e segurança, agricultura e economia azul, integração continental e zona de comércio livre, educação e capacitação e parcerias estratégicas. Neste quadro, das grandes linhas da nossa atuação, adquire uma importância central a questão da paz e segurança, por se tratar de um dos principais pressupostos para se materializarem as aspirações contidas na Agenda 2063 da União Africana, em especial o programa que estabelece o silenciar das armas até 2030, que visa transformar a África numa região pacífica, segura e confiante num futuro promissor e de prosperidade para todos nós africanos, decididos a colocar o nosso continente na rota do desenvolvimento. No relatório sobre as ações que realizei no quadro das minhas atribuições como campeão da União Africana para a Paz e Reconciliação em África, apresentarei de forma mais detalhada as ações que empreendi para ajudar a restituir a paz ao nosso continente e, em especial, na região leste da República Democrática do Congo. Também vos falarei da minha visão sobre o que será essencial levarmos a cabo no futuro para que se consiga pôr um fim definitivo aos conflitos em África e fazer face aos desafios que as mudanças inconstitucionais de governo, o terrorismo e, mais recentemente, a invasão e ocupação de territórios de países vizinhos nos colocam. Temos ainda os desafios que se prendem com as catástrofes naturais resultantes das alterações climáticas e dos surtos de Marburgo, ébola, de varíola de origem animal e da cólera, que ciclicamente nos afeta e nos obriga a trabalhar de forma unida e solidária para que encontremos soluções coletivas para a sua superação. Nesta perspectiva, considero essencial que olhemos para a terceira Conferência dos Oceanos, agendada para o corrente ano em Nice, França, como uma oportunidade para se discutirem as principais preocupações que sobre esta matéria afligem o nosso continente. Tendo mais de 30 países costeiros, o continente deverá ter como objetivos a proteção dos ecossistemas marinhos, promover uma economia azul sustentável e intensificar as ações contra a pesca ilegal, a poluição marinha e as alterações climáticas, que são, na verdade, desafios gigantescos a que temos de fazer face permanentemente. Quero, desde já, manifestar a esperança de que esta conferência contribua para a segurança alimentar, para o reforço da resiliência costeira e crie condições para que se mobilize o financiamento internacional para projetos sustentáveis no quadro da economia azul. Excelências, neste ano da presidência angolana, vamos trabalhar em coordenação com a Comissão da União Africana para mobilizar maiores recursos financeiros por via do reforço da cotização de cada Estado-membro, para que possamos, assim, dotar-nos dos recursos necessários à realização de projetos e programas a nível continental, reduzindo, assim, a nossa dependência relativamente ao financiamento externo. Excelências, minhas senhoras, meus senhores, estamos a viver um ambiente internacional extremamente desafiante, em face dos nefastos efeitos dos conflitos que o continente enfrenta, bem como dos que vive o leste da Europa e a região do Médio Oriente. Apesar disso, temos a plena convicção de que, se conjugarmos esforços e unirmos as nossas forças conseguiremos ultrapassar estes grandes desafios e construir a África com que sonhamos e com uma voz cada vez mais ativa na abordagem dos grandes problemas que afligem a humanidade. É neste contexto que considero que devemos continuar a agir como um só corpo no sentido de que as Nações Unidas se tornem mais inclusivas e alinhadas com os desafios e oportunidades de hoje, devendo a reforma do Conselho de Segurança continuar a ser uma prioridade fundamental para o nosso continente, pelo que é importante que reafirmemos o nosso compromisso com o Consenso de 𝙏𝙖𝙣 e a Declaração de Sirte de 2005 a favor de 2 lugares de membros permanentes com o direito de veto e outros privilégios inerentes. Excelências, gostaria de pedir a todos a maior contribuição possível para que a presidência da nossa organização continental, que a partir de hoje assumo, possa decorrer num clima de grande compreensão e com o dinamismo que se impõe, neste longo caminho que juntos percorremos pela transformação da África num continente de riqueza, de prosperidade para seus filhos. Permitam-me que transmita uma palavra de apreço à Sua Excelência Moussa Faki Mahamat e aos comissários que cessam hoje as suas funções na Comissão da União Africana pelo excelente trabalho desenvolvido no decurso dos seus mandatos ao serviço da nossa Casa Comum. Desejo à nova liderança sénior da Comissão da União Africana muitos sucessos no desempenho das novas funções, enquanto apelamos para que o espírito pan-africano e os ideais dos pais fundadores continuem a guiar o futuro da nossa organização continental. Declaro que aceito passar a exercer, a partir de hoje, as funções de presidente pro tempore da União Africana e que as lágrimas que derramamos hoje pela perca do grande filho de África, Samu Yoma, se transformem na força que nos vai fazer superar todos os desafios que temos pela frente. Muito obrigado pela atenção.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in introducing the theme of the year 2025, Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparations, it is now with great honor that I welcome Her Excellency Dr. Monique Nzanza Baganwa, the Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, who will share her introductory remarks. Your Excellency. Then we will introduce Parliament.
Thank you. Your Excellency, the Chairperson of the African Union, Your Majesties, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency and dear brother, the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, allow me to stand on already established protocol. Over the past centuries, the voices of Africans and people of African descent have echoed in various quarters with a singular demand: justice. Justice for the millions who were forcibly uprooted from their homes, justice for those whose lands were plundered, wealth stolen, and dignity were stripped away, and justice for the generations that continue to face economic, social, and political disenfranchisement stemming from historical wrongs. As I draw my term in office as Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission to an end soon, a unique opportunity is offered to me and one of my teams, SIDO, to introduce to you the 2025 theme of the year, Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparations. As we embark on this journey in 2025, we are guided by the words of the eminent Pan-Africanist Kwame Nkrumah, who declared, and I quote, "We face neither east nor west. We face forward." The African Union's Agenda 2063 envisions a continent that is integrated, prosperous, and driven by its own citizens, a continent that is peaceful. The strength of this Africa has always been in its unity and resilience. At this moment, we stand at the precipice of history, and together we shall pave the way for a more just and dignified future for Africa, the CARICOM, and Africa's global diaspora at large. Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, as I conclude, since I'm not the one to deliver the high-level message, we have two leaders who will do it in just a short. But let me take this opportunity to thank all our stakeholders who have journeyed with us. Thank you, Ghana, and our champion, President Mahama, for inspiring the African Union with this theme. I wish to thank you, my dear brother Musa Faki, for your leadership and support. But through you also, acknowledge our teams who have worked hard around this theme of the year. Especially, I wish to recognize two ladies. Madam Coleman from your cabinet chairperson and Angela from SIDO. You did an amazing work. Special appreciation goes to Her Excellency Mia Amor Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados and Chair of the CARICOM Authority. You have traveled all the way from home to another home to join us in today's launch. May I now invite you, Your Excellency, to come to the podium and address this august assembly. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Your Excellencies, and may I start, Chairperson of the African Union, President of Angola, Your Excellency, Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and our host, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, Your Excellency, outgoing Chairperson of the African Union and President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government of the African Union and First Ladies present, Your Excellency, the President of the Palestinian Authority, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency Moussa Faki Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellencies, former heads of state and heads of government of the African Union, distinguished delegates, ambassadors, and guests all. I stand here clothed in the spirit of the battles of Adwa, conscious that it was that battle within 24 hours that shook the confidence of the powers of Europe, but inspired the people of Africa and the children of the African diaspora that good would prevail over evil and light over darkness, but only in the context of our unity. I stand here conscious that it was that battle that forged the beginnings of Pan-Africanism that eventually led to the movement for independence and the destruction of the colonial powers to give us not full development and power, but the first steps of political independence. I stand here conscious and buffeted by the dreams and works of the great Pan-African pioneers, and conscious that as a children of the Caribbean, we have long dreamt for the moment of unity with our brothers and sisters of Africa, a division that was secured by those whose success and survival depended on separation of us rather than on the ability for us to act as one common people. Our relationship, you can say, was embryonic, but regrettably, as long as it has been and as related as we have been, it has been sporadic. And it is up to us, as the children of independent states, to determine whether the history of separation shall be our future, or whether the spirit of Adwa can be our inspiration to confront the challenges of a new world. Yes, I stand here as a daughter of Africa. I stand here equally as a proud Prime Minister of Barbados, a country which is the first landmass that you reach after you leave this great continent of Africa, a country which became a hub for the wrong reasons. But today I come to Ethiopia to share with you in the Africa Union that we can be a hub now for the right reasons between our two peoples. I stand here as the proud chairman of CARICOM, the Caribbean community, recognizing that as a member of the 6th region of Africa, we have come to reclaim our Atlantic destiny. We have come to ensure that the very futures of our people are different and will not once again be determined by a middleman who will ensure that the Middle Passage is one that sees our people at the bottom of the ocean's floor of the Atlantic or in the fields of the plantations of the Caribbean, but instead that it will be a future that sees our people, hears our people, feels our people, and that will determine in future that it is we who shall forge the manner in which we cooperate, integrate, and invest, rather than simply being victims of a past history. I stand here equally as the chair of the V20, 70 countries across the world that are climate vulnerable, 40% of whom come from this great continent of Africa, recognizing that it is only through unity that we can confront the existential crisis of our generation, that of the climate crisis. The Secretary General of the United Nations has already laid out, ably so, many of the iniquities that we continue to face in spite of political independence. It was His Majesty Haile Selassie who popularized and told us that there shall be no first-class or second-class citizens, words popularized by Bob Marley, learnt by all of our people without appropriately recognizing the context in which he spoke and the mission which must be ours for generations until it is achieved. He told us that there would be war if there were first-class and second-class citizens. He told us that there would be war if the color of our skin was more significant than the color of our eyes. And we see here in the continent the continued descent into conflicts born out of ethnicity differences, born out of a mad grab for resources, not invariably for our own benefit, but for the benefit of others who seek to use our people as pawns in the determination of their own future. But we stand here as proud people, and we have enough among ourselves to know the difference between right and wrong, and to forge a future that is not for a few, but for the many. Indeed, as the world confronts the climate crisis, it is the poorest of the poor who remain the most vulnerable to floods and droughts and hurricanes. It is the poorest of the poor, and soon to be the middle of the middle, who will no longer be able to access insurance and therefore to be able to forge ahead with development if we do not make changes. We have examples of a partnership that have worked for us, not just from the spirit of Adwa and the conquest and the rise of the Pan-Africanist movement in our history, but within recent times. During the COVID-19 pandemic, it was the African Union, under the leadership then of President Ramaphosa, and with the assistance of Dr. Tedros of the WHO, that recognized that the Caribbean, which was being marginalized by denial of access to basic therapeutics, basic medical equipment, to vaccines, that we should not be left as pariahs on the global landscape, but that our brothers and sisters in Africa would bring us through the Africa Medical Supplies platform to be able to ensure that we could secure for our own people It was with the solidarity of many of you in the African Union that the Bridgetown Initiative has been able to take root and to make a case for a more modern and a fairer system that allows us to be able to access finance and to be able to put in place measures that allow us to be able to pause our repayment of debt during the period of necessity for rebuilding after horrific climatic events. We have seen how partnership helps us. We do not need any more evidence. What is required of us is to lead the way to peace, to prosperity, and to justice. And the reparations which we call for the international community to be able to recognize, first and foremost, with that which we ask from each of our children. Say sorry. Say sorry. And mean it. And after you say sorry, recognize that the future of the world is not possible without the stability of Africa and its diaspora. For as long as hypocrisy and double standards remain, it will be impossible to secure stability and peace in any nation across the earth. The reparations that we call for, beyond sorry, must be for fair access and development and compensation, because we each started the journey of independence with a chronic deficit. A deficit of resources, a deficit of fairness, a deficit of opportunity. And it is up to us, many of us in the second and third generation of independence, to be able to frame out fairly, in a mature conversation, what those reparations must look like if we are to attain justice and to inspire the young people of this world that good must always prevail over evil. But it is not only the reparations that we ask from the international community, because we ourselves must repair the damage that was foisted on us. The notion that transit visas, begging for them, must be the lot of our people in order to move across this world cannot be something that gives us satisfaction. To go east and to go west, we are first forced to go north. It is not right. And it is not beyond the heads of government and heads of state, of the region, of the Caribbean community, and of the continent of Africa to determine that we must stop talking about, but simply do what is necessary to build the air bridges and sea bridges to guarantee that we control our destiny. I ask us to reflect on this because it is this simple act, apart from our music and our culture and our food, that will guarantee that it is not simply heads of government and heads of state that will meet in Accra or Bridgetown, but it is ordinary people who will be able to trade and to move from the closest point of Dakar to the closest point of Bridgetown, to be able to open up the opportunities that technically ought to be available not just simply through the Africa Free Trade Area or the CARICOM single market and economy, but through the combined opportunities provided by both. I ask us equally to recognize that in an era where AI is threatening to redefine what humanity can do and even if we can survive, that it is not ours to be the victims once again of technology as we were with gunpowder, but it is for us to help shape the future of the world, because more often than not it is Africa and its people who have brought the humanizing forces to bear on civilization. And if we are to be the cradle of civilization, then we are to be the protectors of people and planet, of humanity, as we go forward. And some watching on may say, how? And I say, how not? How not does a continent that has 40% of the world's minerals not be in charge of helping to secure the destiny and stability of the planet? How not does the numbers of our two communities, who constitute a third of the world's states, not act in singular purpose to forge the kind of world that we want, and to be able to ensure that the institutions that deny access to us to hear our voices as reflective of the continent and of the small island developing states of the world, how do we not secure that admission, which is not only just, but a moral imperative if the world is to have stability in this 21st century? My friends, I ask you, how do we not secure this victory when 1 in every 5 and possibly 1 in every 4 persons on the planet will come from this continent and its diaspora? Those who lead today have a moral imperative, not just to our citizens in our own countries, but above all else, to unity. The spirit of Adwa demands of us that we recognize that even in the face of the greatest technology being foisted upon us, that we can rise and win if we act in unity. This has been a message not given by our generation alone, but by previous generations of African and Caribbean leaders. But we ask ourselves, why does it elude us? And the answer comes not from outside, but only from within. When I speak of the USA with affection, I do not only want to speak of that which is known in the Americas. I want to speak about that which ought to have been possible if the 1884 Berlin talks did not take place. The possibility of the United States of Africa, which is as diverse as India, which is as diverse as China in terms of ethnicity and language and religion, but which is entirely possible if we see not ourselves first, but we see the unity of ourselves together. This may be the cry of a naive and romantic daughter of Africa. But if that is the case, I prefer to die being a naive and romantic daughter of Africa than one who is cynical and one who is daunted by the actions and power of others. We know what it is to stand in unity with you to fight apartheid and to fight for the liberation of the peoples of Africa. For when President Castro stood to send people from his own country to southern Africa to free your people, it was in my own country that the planes refueled, ensuring that that battle was possible. And when 100 years ago, almost, a Barbadian man and woman left our nation and left the United States to come here, Arnold and Mignon Ford, he wrote the anthem and lyrics of the anthem of the United Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, and his wife dared to establish a co-educational school here in Ethiopia, ensuring that boys and girls could receive education in a time and at a time when war was dominating the global landscape. They chose to see light rather than darkness. I ask us today, in tangible terms, that will allow our people to travel, that will allow us to pool our investments to ensure that the people of Africa not be denied the electricity that is so necessary as a platform for participation in the new world. I ask us not only to pool that investment, but to also ensure that we pool our voices, because there is too much division in this world today. There is too much war and there is too much conflict. And we know what precipitates and causes that. If we leave Addis Ababa with the commitment that the world is not going to be safe without a prosperous and stable Africa, then we understand what is the moral imperatives we must undertake in each of our countries to secure that unity of purpose and to secure ultimately the saving of the people and planet. I ask you today to recognize that, and I thank Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for agreeing that the first in-face summit of CARICOM and the Africa Union should take place here in Addis Ababa on the 7th of September of this year of our Lord. By that simple act, we build on the inaugural summit which took place virtually in 2021. But more importantly, we seek to regularize and to establish as a permanent point of interaction the unity of which I speak and call for. And I ask you as I leave this podium to recognize that we too in the Caribbean want to see you. Indeed, in my own country, in Barbados, we will celebrate the Caribbean Festival of Arts, the 15th CariFesta, from August 22nd to August 31st. And we do so not only asking for those from Cuba and Bahamas in the north, to Venezuela, to Suriname and Guyana in the south, to Belize in the west and the Eastern Caribbean, to come together to express our commitment to each other creatively through food and fashion and music and dance and art and sculpture, and talk of philosophy, talk of religion, talk of who we are, talk of the future. I ask us to recognize that we celebrate this year our resilience, and that we do so not only asking the people of the Caribbean to come, but the people from whom we came here in Africa, in India, in China, and the continent to which we went, in particular, in Central America and Latin America. This is our moment to show the world that we were not simply apostrophes to the history and the modern history of humanity, but that truly we are the ones who can level the playing field and to create the opportunities that will allow the world to see people, hear people, and feel people, and to value the planet and its biodiversity at the very time when it is greatest in crisis. Let us remove the scars of history and be firm craftsmen of our fate, recognizing that the only people who can stop us now are we, but ourselves. We have to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery and to build the future that our people want of us and to give them that pride that is theirs. And we must do so in the spirit and with the results of ADWA. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Prime Minister of Barbados, Chair of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, for a global call for the African Union theme of year 2025. It is my distinct honor to welcome now His Excellency John Mahama, the President of the Republic of Ghana, as the African Union leader on advancing the cause of justice and payment of reparations to Africans. Your Excellency.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Chairman, President of Angola, Your Excellency, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Your Excellency, Chairperson of the African Union, and in the interest of time, may I just proceed on established protocol and say, Your Excellencies, my colleague, heads of state, distinguished citizens. It's a privilege to address this historic launch of the African Union theme of the year 2025, and I quote, "Justice for Africans and the people of African descent through reparations," unquote. This moment marks a significant milestone in our collective pursuit of justice, equity, and the long overdue recognition of the historical injustices that continue to shape the lives of Africans and the people of African descent worldwide. At the 37th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of the African Union in February 2024, our heads of state and government made a landmark decision to dedicate the year 2025 to the cause of reparatory justice. This decision underscores our collective commitment to addressing the historical injustices and their lingering consequences that have impacted generations of Africans and people of African descent. It aligns with our broader struggle for liberation, unity, and socio-economic empowerment as enshrined in Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, a vision for an integrated, peaceful, and prosperous continent. Your Excellencies, the transatlantic slave trade was one of the most heinous crimes against humanity, spanning about 400 years and forcibly displacing more than 12.5 million Africans. It is estimated that at least 2 million of our compatriots perished during the Middle Passage alone. The legacy of this brutal system, along with colonialism, apartheid, genocide, and neo-colonial exploitation, have left deep and enduring scars on the fabric of our societies. Today, the descendants of enslaved Africans continue to face economic disparities, social inequality, systemic discrimination, and racial prejudices. Addressing these challenges requires more than just acknowledging them. It demands action. The economic impact of colonialism on Africa has been profound. Historical estimates suggest that the continent lost trillions of dollars in both human and material resources due to colonial exploitation. The forced extraction of wealth, which included minerals, cash crops, and labor, deprived African nations of the capital and infrastructure necessary for sustainable development. Colonial policies intentionally stifled industrial growth, leading to a dependency on foreign economies that persists even till today. The systemic plundering of Africa's natural resources, coupled with the disruption of traditional governance structures, has resulted in lasting consequences, worsening poverty and the development and inequality throughout the continent. In November 2023, Ghana hosted the Accra Reparations Conference, a historic gathering that brought together African heads of state, scholars, and representatives of the global African diaspora to advance the reparations movement. This conference reaffirmed the urgent need for comprehensive reparatory justice and laid the foundation for stronger advocacy and policy frameworks. It provided a platform for dialogue on the financial, cultural, and social restitution necessary to address the enduring effects of slavery and colonialism. The outcomes of this conference served as a guiding pillar for our collective efforts moving forward. The 2025 AU theme of the year is therefore a call to galvanize efforts towards reparatory justice. It is an appeal to ensure that the dignity, rights, and well-being of Africans and their descendants are fully restored. Reparations involves not only financial compensation, but also restitution, rehabilitation, and guarantees of non-repetition for the abuse of fellow human beings. It is also about truth-telling, historical accountability, and the restoration of agency to those who have been marginalized for centuries. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the call for reparations, while including, extends beyond financial redress to encompass addressing structural inequalities, ensuring educational and economic opportunities, reclaiming cultural heritage, and amplifying the voice of Africa and the diaspora communities on the global stage. Achieving justice requires multi-stakeholder collaboration. Today's pre-launch event serves as a crucial platform for concertedly rolling out constructive consultation, dialogue, and partnership. We welcome the participation of AU member states, regional economic communities, the global African diaspora, civil society organizations, academia, the private sector, and international partners in this transformative endeavor. The African Union Commission, in collaboration with key partners, have developed a concept note and revised the roadmap to guide the implementation of the reparations agenda. This initiative will further the aspirations of Agenda 2063, fostering an Africa that is self-reliant, just, and inclusive. Through this launch, we seek to, among other things, mobilize political will and commitment towards reparatory justice and racial healing, present and discuss the roadmap for implementing the 2025 theme of the year, foster partnerships among AU member states, diaspora communities, and like-minded international allies, engage stakeholders in resource mobilization efforts to support reparations initiatives across Africa, elevate awareness and advocacy to ensure sustained engagement beyond 2025, encourage dialogue and knowledge sharing among experts, policymakers, historians, and affected communities, and finally, to ensure an end to the culture of silence and denial on racism and colonialism. Your Excellency, the work ahead requires a unified voice, a clear strategy, and unyielding commitment. Today, we reaffirm our commitment to working together to develop policies and frameworks that will support reparation efforts across Africa and beyond. We must continue to advocate for stronger legal and institutional mechanisms at the national, regional, and international levels to ensure that reparatory justice for the historical trauma inflicted on global Africa is not just a conversation, but a reality. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, I wish to express Ghana's unwavering support for this critical initiative. Let us seize this moment with the determination it deserves as we work together towards a future that is fair, that is just, and equitable for all Africans and people of African descent, and by natural extension, the uplifting of all humanity. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Allow me now, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to move to the family photo while calling the rest of the respective delegates to remain in their seats. Remain in their seats, please, to ensure the smooth organization of the family photo. Allow me this time to call Excellencies and Honorable Heads of States and delegates in an organized manner to proceed to the photo session location. Allow me now to start by calling distinguished presidents from Liberia, Libya, Madagascar, and Malawi. Please follow our protocol team to the family photo. There is only one door open for the family photo, which is gate number 5. Please, protocol teams, lead our leaders to the family photo. And then the second row, please, distinguished presidents and heads of states from Cape Verde, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Comoros, Congo, Cote d'Ivoire, Democratic Republic of Congo, Djibouti, Egypt, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Swatini, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Kenya, and Lesotho. Please follow our protocol team to the family photo. Excellencies, presidents and heads of delegations from Sierra Leone, Somalia, South Africa, South Sudan, Tanzania, Togo, Tunisia, Uganda, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Algeria, Benin, Botswana, and Burundi. Please follow our protocol team to the photo session location. Honorable presidents and heads of delegations from Mauritania, Mauritius, Morocco, Mozambique, Namibia, Nigeria, Rwanda, Sahrawi Republic, Sao Tome and Principe, Senegal, Seychelles, please follow our protocol team. Excellency Prime Minister of Barbados. They went? Okay. Okay, with that, I thank you all for your time and I wish you fruitful deliberations. They didn't wait. Nobody wait. Yes. They will change. I have my team.
Thank you very much for being here. We have largely an energy group today. We're looking to be very energy dominant, and we will be in a very short order. These are great professionals, but before we do that, we'll be signing an executive order having to do with COVID and schools. Lindsay?
Yep. So this first executive order, it prohibits federal funding for COVID-19 mandates, vaccine mandates in schools.
Okay, and that will meaning they want to clear that up, the discrepancy.
So any schools that require students to be vaccinated with COVID-19 shot, then there's no more federal funding. So.
Okay. Okay, that solves that problem.
Sir, will the Department of Education have to handle that?
Yes, it'll go through the Department of Education. Okay? Thanks.
Can I make one comment, Mr. President?
Yes, please.
As a father of 9, thank you. We should have parental freedom to decide what vaccines our kids take, as opposed to school systems and governors forcing upon the people that love these kids the most, which is the parents. So thank you for citing that.
Great, thank you very much. People wanted that very badly. Okay.
Okay, and here is an executive order establishing the National Energy Dominance Council. So that will be chaired by the Secretary of the Interior, Mr. Burgum, and the Vice Chair, Chris Wright. And so this will reduce costs with respect to energy, establish American independence with energy, and also unleash energy dominance.
Good, thank you. And this is a big deal. We have more energy than any other country, and now we're unleashing it, to put it nicely. And I'd like to ask Doug, you're going to be heading it up. You and Chris, would you say a few words about it, please?
Yeah, absolutely, sir. Good afternoon. President Trump wisely understood that under the Biden administration, there was a war against American energy, and today that war officially has ended. President Trump on day one declared a national energy emergency. And this is a real emergency because under the Biden administration restricted the production of oil and gas. Production's still coming, but when you stop holding leases, when you take 625 million acres of land out of ocean land, out of production possibilities through an executive order, you're really restricting the balance sheet of America. But today, as President Trump said, this is unleashed. The National Energy Dominance Council will be made up, all the folks that are standing beside me here, other cabinet leaders and many more, represent President Trump's wise decision that we need a whole-of-government approach to unwind. The Biden administration had a whole-of-government approach that had the war against U.S. energy. Now we need to turn that around 180 degrees and unleash that potential. We've got to unleash it from the Gulf of America all the way up to Alaska. We have amazing resources in this country, and we haven't been getting a return on them. Many of these are under public lands. The Interior has 500 million acres of surface, 700 million acres of subsurface minerals, critical minerals, and offshore close to 2 billion acres. And that balance sheet is the biggest balance sheet in the world, and it's been completely underutilized. Everybody knows we have $36 trillion in debt as a country, but no one knows how many hundreds of trillions of dollars of assets we have. And President Trump is asking us to go get a return on that investment for the American people. And with that, we're going to have prosperity at home with lower prices, and we're also going to have peace abroad, because the wars that we've been engaged in, or our allies have been fighting over the past few years, have been funded by the oil sales of our adversaries. So we have an opportunity, and we also are in an AI arms race with China. The only way we win that is with more electricity. And we also have an energy emergency in terms of electricity. Too much intermittent, unreliable, not enough base load. We've been shutting down the base load that we have. President Trump is going to reverse that, and it's going to allow us to win the AI arms race, which is the most important thing that we have to do relative to our future. So with that, I want to say again, thank you to President Trump, and I want to thank my fellow members of the Energy Council here. I'm going to kick it over to the Vice Chair, Chris Wright, who's the Secretary of the Department of Energy.
Thank you, Secretary Burgum. Today is truly a great day for our country today. And Secretary Burgum laid out so many of the problems the last 4 years. If you put barriers in front of energy, you make it more expensive, you make it less reliable, you make it harder to do business here, and harder for our consumers to pay their bills. With this fantastic action from our president, we now have authority across the government to lean in to fix these problems. And I'll start out with one specific right away. This morning, I signed our first LNG export license, unpausing the pause in action. The Commonwealth LNG project that'll be on the Gulf Coast in Louisiana is now officially ready to go. This will be a large construction project for American workers. It'll draw demand for more American energy production that'll be shipped overseas to our allies. Many more of those to come. We're also working aggressively to roll back standards that have made appliances more expensive for Americans, and dishwashers that take 2 hours long and don't get your dishes clean. Nobody likes that. That's about standing in the way. And with this President Trump and our new National Energy Dominance Council, there's so many things we can do to make American lives better, bring down costs, and grow opportunities. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to a fellow member of the Council, our Administrator of the EPA, Lee Zeldin.
Thank you, Secretary, and honored to be serving on the Energy Dominance Council. At EPA, we're doing our part to power the great American comeback. And President Trump has made it clear that he wants EPA to be doing our job to ensure that we are unleashing energy dominance however we can help, that we are assisting in making America the AI capital of the world, that we are pursuing permitting reform, that we are helping to bring back American auto jobs. This is the mandate of the American public. The Trump mandate, it was clear, and the guidance from President Trump to me when he asked me, thankfully, for the opportunity for us to be able to serve together in partnership to unleash energy dominance. This is a moment that we must meet. To that end, it is important to note that the prior Biden-Harris EPA issued a waiver to California for tailpipe emissions. This was a rule that should have been submitted to Congress. We will submit it to Congress. Congress will have the opportunity through the Congressional Review Act to make that waiver go away. We will do everything in our part to help the American people to make life in America more affordable. The golden age of American success is upon us. If you're excited about the last 3 weeks, that was just a taste of the main event, the entree to come, the next 4 years being the greatest term in the history of the American presidency. With that, I'd like to introduce Sean Duffy.
Thank you. So, first of all, thank you for the work on dishwashers. We use more water to wash our dishes before we put them in the dishwasher.
That's right.
We're not saving water, we're using more water, so thank you for that. But I'm also joining the EPA. We've introduced our rules to start to look at the CAFE standards. So we're looking at how much it costs for end users when they put gas in their car. And the Biden era standards are costing billions of dollars in taxes and carbon credits, which drive up the cost of vehicles. And so we're going to remedy that, rectify it, and make sure we're bringing down the cost of a car, number one. Number two, if I could just mention, Mr. President, per your direction, we are going to move forward with a permitting process for the Texas Gulf Link deep water port, making sure we can move energy in and out of the country. So that was held up for 5 years. And it was stonewalled, bureaucrats got in the way. We're now going to move forward with that, making sure we have great oil infrastructure in the country.
Great, thanks. Great
and
job.
Howard Lutnick?
Yes.
So, the nanny state, you're feeling the end of the nanny state. From straws made of paper to regulation endlessly harming Americans and holding us back. It slows down our production and manufacturing, which we were talking about with the Prime Minister of India yesterday. You're hearing that about energy dominance. It's going to go away. We're going to care about Americans. The Trump administration and this president cares about Americans, and you're going to feel it change. You're going to feel the price of energy coming down. You're going to feel prices coming down. You're going to feel an explosion. The golden age of manufacturing of America has always been there. It's just been stifled by regulation, and that time is over.
Thank you very much, Howard. Please.
Mr. President, I just want to say that you've built such an incredible team, and Secretary and Chairman Burgum, that he's been working on this his whole life. And so what I expect you to see, sir, is action as early as next week that is going to shock people about how good it is for Americans. And so thank you for your leadership, sir.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And we are also working on a project that has been under wraps for 20 years. Everybody wanted it. It's been held up by New York. It's a pipeline that will bring down the energy prices in New York and in all of New England by 50, 60, 70%. It should have been done years ago. We'll be speaking to New York, and the New York is actually the biggest beneficiary because their energy costs are very high. This will reduce them very substantially. But all of the governors want this to happen, and I think it's going to happen. It's now going to happen. It's something that's would rather not have to go eminent domain. We'll do that if we have to in New York, but hopefully we won't have to do that. This again will bring down energy prices in New England by numbers that nobody can even believe, probably 50, 60%, maybe even more than that. A lot of them don't even pay energy because they have no energy. They use logs. They go out and they cut down a tree. It's really a terrible situation. So we're going to get this done, and we can have it done once we start construction. We're looking at anywhere from 9 to 12 months, if you can believe it. It's going to go very rapidly. The other thing I'd like Doug to mention, the 635 million acres that Biden so viciously took out of our net worth. If you look at it from the standpoint of a company, you talk about net worth. They've destroyed our net worth. We're putting it back. It will be back as of this afternoon. And Doug, could you mention that? All of the millions and millions of acres that he just handed back to nobody.
The executive order by President Biden that wiped out these trillions from our balance sheet. President Trump signed an executive order instructing me as the Secretary of Interior to unban that ban, and that's been accomplished. And so those are back on the U.S. balance sheet.
Okay.
Sorry, which one is that?
The 625 million acres of offshore that was banned from further lease sales.
Further anything.
And 625 million acres is
Right.
1/3 the size of the lower 48 that was taken off our balance sheet. It's back on there now. President Trump cares about the American people. He knows that these public lands belong to the public. They don't belong to Washington bureaucrats from the prior administration, and we're going to make sure that we get a return on investment for the American people.
The amount of money that he took off our balance sheet, if you look at it as a balance sheet, it was incalculable. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. And he did that, I guess, in the last few days of the administration. He just wiped it out. 635 million acres, which if you sit down and look, it's like that's a major part of the ocean. And he just gave it away and took it away. And fortunately, it wasn't done with an act of Congress or anything. And we did it in a, I think, very abbreviated, very quick, and very legal procedure. And it's now back on our balance sheet. It's back as part of our country. What they did was so horrible. It was just a terrible thing to do, an unbelievable thing to do. Also, they mentioned dishwashers and sinks and showers and the whole thing. We're going to get rid of those restrictions. You have many places where they have water. They have so much water they don't know what to do with it. But people buy a house, they turn on the sink and water barely comes out. They take a shower, water barely comes out. And it's an unnecessary restriction. And basically, I think we're going to be going back to the Trump rule. We had it, and everybody was happy. And then these people came in and they restricted it again. So we're going back, and we'll get it approved by Congress. In addition, we'll get it approved by Congress. So for 4 years, it's good, but we're going to get it permanently taken care of. And again, very environmentally friendly. But we want to be able to, when somebody turns on a sink to wash their hands or presses the button for a dishwasher, and there's barely enough water to, I mean, there's no water. And you know what they do? They press the button 10 times. They run it 10 times. So it ends up costing a lot more. So I know you're working on that. And where are we on that?
We're working closely with the Department of Energy with regards to rules that were enacted during the Biden administration. Inside of the EPA, we are overhauling the water sense standards that are there to update them for the American people, to bring down cost of living and combat inflation, and just pursue common sense.
Good. Well, we have more oil and gas than anybody else in the world. We're opening up ANWR again. As you know, we got something Ronald Reagan couldn't do it. No president was able to do it. I got it. And the first week in office, the Biden administration terminated that. Anwar is the biggest site, probably bigger than Saudi Arabia. We don't know yet, but it's of that size or bigger. And we hit gold, and I call it liquid gold, but we hit gold, and for whatever reason, they terminated it, and we were just ready to start utilizing it. This could take care of all of Asia, energy-wise, very close to Japan. In fact, Japan wants to go and be our partner in doing the pipeline going right into the ships. So they expressed tremendous interest. So did Prime Minister Modi of India. And just in closing, both Prime Minister Modi and the Prime Minister of Japan, both very good people, they said we couldn't make a deal. We couldn't get any energy. I mean, you wonder what was going on with our country. They couldn't make a deal to get any energy from the Biden administration. They just couldn't do it. There was nobody to deal with. They didn't know how to go about it. And they're very happy that we're here. But we're going to really benefit our taxpayers, and we're going to benefit our country. So I want to thank everybody for coming. This is a very big bill. This is really going to be energy dominant. We're going to be energy dominant like nobody else. And this doesn't even discuss all of the electricity that we're going to be producing for all of the AI plants. You know, they need double the electricity at least that we have right now. So you take all of our electricity that we have all over the country just for AI to do it right and to win that war, which we're leading by a lot because of what we've done over the last few weeks. We're leading by actually a lot. But if you take all of it, we have to double our electricity needs just for the AI, and that doesn't include the other technologies. So it's a real honor to sign this bill. We're going to also work on CAFE standards. Lee, you're going to be doing that and make that whole situation, bring that back into reality, and I think very quickly, having to do with cars. Thank you very much. No, but in 2 weeks we will have another one. Yesterday was very big. Reciprocal tariffs was very big, and I explained to the Prime Minister of India, Prime Minister Modi, very good man, his tariffs are very, very high. India's tariffs are among the highest. And I said, well, now, you know, we were very low. We were the lowest. They're just about the highest. There are others as high, but not much higher. And I said, no, from now on, what we do is what you charge us, we charge you. It's very simple. So whatever you're charging us, you can go as high as you want. Whatever you charge us, we charge you.
Did he make any pledges?
And I wouldn't say they were thrilled to hear that, but that's the way it is. Tariff, I told you, is a beautiful word. Fourth most beautiful.
Did he make any pledges about BRICS nations not undermining the dollar? You had threatened
100%
tariffs.
BRICS, the BRICS nations, I think that's breaking up very rapidly. We said that if they're going to go and do anything to undermine the dollar, that includes China. I don't even know that they're a member of BRICS, but they had a few nations get together to try and play cute. And I said, we're going to put 100% tariff on every one of those nations. And at the mere thought of saying that, I think that's all broken up. That idea has no longer sailed. Now, that would be a terrible thing for our country. It would be bad for the world. They wanted to undermine the dollar. 6 nations got together. They want to undermine the dollar. That didn't work out too well. Not going to happen. And we're getting along with a lot of nations now, frankly. There's a lot of respect for the United States. We have regained the respect that we should have, but we've also done things to deserve it. I mean, we've freed up our country, and you're going to see this is basically energy dominance, and it's going to be environmentally clean, environmentally wonderful, and taxes will be very reasonable based on this. We're going to make more money than anybody's ever made with energy. We have more energy than anybody else, and it's clean energy, very clean, beautiful energy. We're lucky. We have it. I call it liquid gold under our feet, and we're going to utilize it. So this is a very big bill, and I have a very talented group of people behind me. This gentleman was the #1 man in all of the oil industry. They said there's nobody like him, Chris Wright. And you know Doug. Doug actually made a tremendous fortune in technology, and he said, I'm going to run for the governorship of, he loves his state, of North Dakota. And he did, and he made it so energy powerful that I think you're more proficient at energy than technology, but what do I know? And this guy, everybody knows him, Sean. He's been He's done a fast study on transportation, and he knows he's learned a lot over the last few months. He's learned a lot. He's really been great. And Howard has built one of the great companies, Cantor Fitzgerald. It was wiped out, completely wiped out, other than a few people left in Europe. And he rebuilt the company into a bigger, better company. Cantor Fitzgerald is one of the most, absolutely one of the top companies on Wall Street, stocks, bonds, trading. And he took that, I mean, he literally watched the plane go into the building, go into the World Trade Center. Amazing story. That alone is an amazing story. He was delayed because his wife insisted that he finally, after years, take his child to school. So he took his child to school that one day, because normally he would have been in the building at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's that business, right? So you owe your wife a lot and your child a lot, right? But his wife insisted that he take his child to school. For 5 years he didn't do it. He was horrible. What kind of a father was he? Okay, I'll do it. And he was therefore driving down at 8:43, whatever the time was, down the West Side Highway, and he saw the plane go into the side of the building. He said, wow. And he occupied the top 3 floors of the World Trade Center, of the one building of the World Trade Center. And you know what happened there? He lost 100% of the people in that, his whole company was there. And he rebuilt his company step by step over years and became bigger and stronger. And he gave a tremendous amount of the profit to the families of the people that died, which he didn't have to do. And now he's working with us. He did an incredible job. I mean, anybody in that world, they know Howard Lutnick very well, and I'm honored to have him running commerce. He's going to be incredible. He loves the country. And Lee was a great lawyer, a great congressman, very successful person, both as a lawyer and as a congressman, and knows a lot about the environment, cares about the environment. And we were lucky that I was very happy that you joined. And he was with me right from the beginning, always was with me, and I've always been with him. And Kevin Hassett, we know everybody knows Kevin, and he's fantastic. And you and Lindsay, you and your team are incredible. The job you've done, we really appreciate. Thank Will. And the job you guys are doing is really fantastic. We're knocking this out. Brian, do you have a question?
I actually do. What kind of piqued my interest is growing up on the Texas Gulf Coast, natural gas, the LNG that you mentioned.
Yeah.
What's the potential for like new jobs or growth in that area? I mean, that part of the country, Southwest Louisiana, Southeast Texas, they depend on that.
I would say that potential is simply tremendous. You know, 20 years ago, the United States was the biggest importer of natural gas in the world. And we had natural gas prices 2 or 3 times higher than they are today. But with shale revolution and great entrepreneurs in Texas and Louisiana and across our great country, we are now today the largest net exporter of natural gas in the world. And so much of the world is depending upon natural gas is the fastest growing energy source, has been for 50 years. We were the driver of that, and then we paused. We stopped our ability to grow natural gas exports. Both the Japanese government and Indian government expressed great distress about that. They're going to count on energy imports from the U.S., and we may just change our mind. So I think they're thrilled to see the actions of this president say America's open for business. Yes, we have the energy, we have the people, we have huge job opportunities and investment opportunities, not just in the oil and gas industry, but all those surrounding communities that are lifted up by that more production here. And as we produce more production at scale, not only does it allow us to export, but it becomes more efficient, and it helps us drive down the cost for our domestic consumers as well.
Yeah, I know they're really happy, so just let you
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. And I will say this, that this all started 8 years ago when I got elected. We were doing this, not to the extent that we're doing it now, but we were doing this, and we became #1 in oil and gas by far. And we were #3, even #4, some would say. When I left, we were #1 by a lot. And then they pulled way back, and the prices started going through the roof. And then they went back to my plan, but by that time the prices had already gone up, so they really disrupted it. But now we're going to take it to a new level. It's going to be amazing. And we're also, it's very powerful, clean coal We have more coal than anybody. This is good, beautiful, clean coal. And if you notice, China's opening up a coal plant a month. Germany is now opening up a coal plant every 2 months. Very powerful. It's probably the most powerful source of energy in terms of generation of electricity and other things. And we're going to utilize our good, clean, beautiful coal and oil and gas. We have more than anybody of everything, and we're going to take advantage of it. And I appreciate everybody being here.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
on the energy,
Please.
Can I ask you, sir, about what's happening in Munich? Senator Roger Wicker shepherded Defense Secretary Hegseth through his confirmation. He got him through that process, and then he had some tough words for him overseas. He said it was a rookie mistake for Secretary Hegseth to outline what would or would not happen as far as Ukraine's membership in NATO goes. And then
I haven't heard that. I mean, Roger's a very good friend of mine, and Peter's obviously, he's been doing a great job.
Did you know
I haven't heard. Let me look at. You tell me something. I have not heard about.
The question I had is, were you aware of what Secretary Hegseth was going to say in his speech at NATO?
Generally speaking, yeah. Generally speaking, I was. So I'll speak to Roger. I'll speak to Pete. I'll find out.
Mr. President, the Energy Dominance Council, that's for all forms of energy? Does that include
All
wind and
forms
solar?
of energy, yep.
And the pipeline you mentioned, sir, is that Constitution pipeline in New York?
Yes.
Can you, is that the
I
project?
believe
that's
it, right?
finished?
Yeah, that's what it is. And, you know, they've been trying to get it for 20 years. And what it means is for New York, upstate New York, and even everywhere in New York, also other states, but in particular New England, that New England will now, I think, will cut the energy prices, and big cuts in New York too, but cut the energy prices literally in half. We have the permits. We have permits that just about everything we need a New York permit, and I would imagine they want to do it because their energy prices will come down so far. And it's a lot of jobs for New York. It's a great thing for New York. Everybody wants it. We'll be meeting with the various governors, Governor of New York and the other governors too. And we can have it built in about 9 months, and let's say 1 year, but we can actually have it built in pretty close to 9 months. It's all set. We have most of the permits, almost all of the permits.
And on just, you're prioritizing energy dominance today. You've also prioritized trade balance. The oil industry is a little worried about the steel tariffs. I mean, they put 20,000 feet steel in the ground at a well. How will you balance that? Is there a possibility?
You're talking about steel and aluminum.
Indeed, steel tariffs.
So the steel, I saved the steel industry in my first term by putting on tariffs because China was dumping massive amounts of steel. Others also, but mostly China. And I put very substantial, we took in $600 billion worth of tariffs from China. No other president's taken up, literally haven't gotten 10 cents from China, not 10 cents. And hundreds of billions of dollars came in from China. And they understood it. They understood what I did. But the dumping stopped. And had I not done that, you wouldn't have one steel mill, I think I can say, not one steel mill operating in this country. And we need steel. We need steel. I mean, there are some things you have to have, and steel is one of them for military, et cetera. So I think steel is going to be very strong. It's going to be very strong. I think it'll go back to being really powerful. We saved it. I mean, we were talking about U.S. Steel last week. U.S. Steel would have been closed, totally closed. We saved it. And now it's going to become, I think, very, very profitable. The tariffs are going to save a lot of industries.
Mr. President, U.S. Steel, can I just follow up on U.S. Steel just
go
very
ahead,
quickly,
finish
sir? If the Japanese company that's interested in U.S. Steel wants to take a minority stake as opposed to full ownership, is
A
that
minority
fine?
stake I wouldn't mind greatly, but what they're doing right now is they're going to be investors, and they're going to be investing in, I think, debt and various other things. But we didn't want to let U.S. Steel go to a foreign company. U.S. Steel was the greatest company in the world for a period of 15 years. It was, you know, it was the big deal 80 years ago or so. And psychologically, we can't even think about letting that happen. But what is going to happen, and we've already seen it, you see it in the stock price, with the tariffs, U.S. Steel is going to be a real powerhouse again.
Mr. President, if I could just follow up on Jackie's question about Munich. Vice President Vance's speech to the conference has ruffled quite a few feathers in Europe.
What did he say to ruffle them? I don't know.
He was talking about the freedom of speech and migration in Europe. Do you believe that European leaders have a fundamentally different view of the world than this administration's?
Well, I heard his speech, and I tell you, you're talking about JD's speech, right?
Yes, sir.
I heard his speech, and He talked about freedom of speech, and I think it's true in Europe. It's losing. They're losing their wonderful right of freedom of speech. I see it. I mean, I thought he made a very good speech, actually, a very brilliant speech. Yeah. Europe has to be careful. And he talked about immigration. And Europe has a big immigration problem. Just take a look at what's happened with crime. Take a look at what's happening in various parts of Europe. I thought his speech was very well received, actually. I've heard very good remarks.
And in regards to Ukraine as well, yesterday you mentioned that you thought Ukraine's NATO aspirations were one of the main reasons that the war broke out. Who do you blame for the war, Ukraine or Russia?
Well, I think this. I think that there were a lot of people to blame. All I can say is very simply, if I were president, that war would never have happened. And you know what else wouldn't have happened? The Middle East wouldn't be all blown up, and October 7th wouldn't have happened either. Those two areas, you wouldn't have inflation, you wouldn't have October 7th, you wouldn't have Russia and Ukraine fighting. None of those things would have happened if I were president.
Mr. President?
Yeah, please.
You mentioned auto tariffs the other day.
Yeah.
When do you plan to unroll?
Howard, I'd say over the next, sometime, maybe around April 2nd. I would have done them on April 1st. Believe it or not. I'm a little superstitious. No, literally, we had it planned for April 1st. I said, let's make it April 2nd. You know how much money that costs? That costs a lot of money just that one day. But we're going to do it on April 2nd, I think. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
The lead prosecutor in Eric Adams' case resigned today, saying anyone who didn't press forward would be a coward. What's your reaction to that and to the overall implication that politics were at play here?
Well, I don't know about it. I mean, obviously I'm not involved in that. But I would say this, that if they had a problem, and these are mostly people from the previous administration, you understand, so they weren't going to be there anyway. They were going to all be gone or dismissed. If not, they know on Tuesday they're all being dismissed. You know, the whole country is being, because what you do is you come in and you put new people in. So when you say resign, they're going to be gone anyway. But I know nothing about the individual case. I know that they didn't feel it was much of a case. They also felt that it was unfair with the election. Look, I would know that better than anybody because I was weaponized more than any human being in the history probably of the world. And I won the election in a landslide, winning all 7 swing states, winning the popular vote and everything else. Because the people got it. It was weaponized, and I was weaponized literally weeks before the election. But I think there's also something to be said. I read that. There's something to be said for what they were doing. It looked to me to be very political. But why didn't they bring this up like 4 or 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, or whenever it happened? You know, they just sat around and didn't complain. Then all of a sudden they complain, and they know they're all being dismissed anyway. So, you know. That's the way it is. That's called politics, I guess. Yeah, please.
Earlier this week, you predicted that all hell would break loose if Hamas didn't hand over all of their hostages. What do you expect to happen tomorrow in terms of
I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow at 12 o'clock. It was up to me. I'd take a very hard stance. I can't tell you what Israel's going to do. But I watched the last people come out, and I looked at a before and an after picture. One guy was a big, strong, healthy guy. You could say he was a little bit overweight. He's not overweight anymore. He looks like he just came out of the Holocaust. It looks like a Holocaust picture. I've looked at him for a long time, and they've been treated very badly. The young lady came out last week. Her hand was blown off. I mean, literally, her hand was trying to stop a bullet that was headed for her face. She put up her hand. She goes like this and wiped out her fingers and a lot of her hand. Now, I would take a different stance, but it depends. Look, it depends what Bibi's going to do. It depends what Israel's going to do. But and now I understand they've totally changed. Hamas has totally changed. They want to release hostages now again. But you have to see, this started by them saying, we're not going to release the hostages as we said we were. I said, good. You have till 12 o'clock on Saturday, which is tomorrow at 12 o'clock to do it. And we didn't hear anything. Then all of a sudden, 2 days ago, they said, no, we've decided we're going to release the hostages. So, but I actually think they should release all of the hostages. Remember, they're probably as bad as they looked. I mean, I don't like to say that, but they looked real bad 4 days ago, 5 days ago when I saw them. And the young ladies that came out were treated really badly. You don't know what happened. but I do. They were treated really badly. But as bad as they look, the ones that follow probably will look a lot worse. I think they're sending out their most healthy, and they've been hit hard on that, Hamas. So they probably didn't want to release. But they changed their mind. I said 12 o'clock tomorrow, and all of a sudden, 2 days ago, yesterday, they said they're going back to releasing. But this all started by them saying, we are not going to release any more hostages. And then yesterday they said they are going to release the hostages. But I think they should release all of the hostages.
About 75,000 workers took this deferred resignation. It's a little bit short of the 5 to 10% goal you were hoping to hit. Do you think you'll have to make up the rest of that number in layoffs?
No, look, that's 75,000 more than we would have had. And nobody knows what that final number is, because in the end, I think a lot of people aren't going to show up to work. A lot of people, they got used to staying home and quote, working. But, you know, I wonder if they had other jobs or other things. You know, they have a lot of problems with that. No, 75,000 is a lot of people. And we paid them well. You know, we gave them a lot of months of severance pay, if you call it that. But no, I think you'll probably have some more too, in addition. It's a big, tremendous saving for our government. We want to downsize government, but make it better. Run it better, but downsize. Yeah, please.
So can I ask about the UK? I understand that you had a phone call with Keir Starmer yesterday.
I did. I just signed a letter to him. He asked for a meeting, and I agreed to the meeting. We're going to have a friendly meeting. Very good. We have a lot of good things going on. But he asked to come and see me, and I just accepted his asking.
Do you have a date for that, sir? And what do you hope to
Very soon. I think he wants to come next week or the week after.
And what do you hope to discuss?
I don't know. It was his request, not mine. But, you know, I've met him twice already. We get along very well. He's a very nice guy. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Brian.
Will there be carve-outs, sir?
Thank you, press. Thank
in
you.
the tariffs?
Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ask you to speak yet, please. Right? Okay. Go ahead, please. Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, you are meeting Prime Minister Modi of India this afternoon. What kind of trade and tariff relations would you like to have with India, and what's the vision for India-US?
Yeah, India traditionally is the highest, just about the highest tariffed country. They charge more tariffs than any other country. And, I mean, we'll be talking about that. But, again, whatever they charge us, we're charging them. So it works out very well. It's a beautiful, simple system. And we don't have to worry about, gee, we're charging too much or too little. But traditionally, India is right at the top of the pack, pretty much. There are a couple of smaller countries that are actually more. But India is a they charge tremendous tariffs. I remember when Harley-Davidson couldn't sell their motorbikes into India because of the fact that the tax was so high, the tariff was so high. And Harley was forced to build, I guess they built, I don't know, that was a while ago, but I think they built a factory in India in order to avoid paying the tariffs. And that's what people can do with us. They can build a factory here, a plant or whatever it might be here, and that includes the medical, that includes cars, that includes chips and semiconductors, that includes everything. If you build here, you have no tariffs whatsoever. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think our country is going to be flooded with jobs.
What should consumers expect? Are prices going to go up short-term,
Well,
long-term?
not necessarily. I mean, not necessarily, but I'll tell you what will go up is jobs. The jobs will go up tremendously. We're going to have great jobs for everybody. This is something that should have been done many years ago. China did it. I mean, China did it at a level that probably nobody's ever seen before. If you manufactured a car, you couldn't send it into China. The tariff was so high, so everybody went and they built in China. It was no big secret. So we're going to see, but it's going to mean tremendous amounts of jobs. And ultimately, prices will stay the same, go down. But we're going to have a very dynamic country.
But if prices go up, Mr. President, because of these tariffs, who do you think voters should hold responsible?
Oh, I think what's going to go up is jobs are going to go up. And prices could go up somewhat short term, but prices will also go down. And I think the farmers are going to be helped by this very much because product is being dumped into our country and our farmers are getting hurt very badly by the last administration. The last administration hated our farmers, like at a level that I've never seen before. I think our farmers are going to be helped. Jobs are going to be helped, but our farmers are going to be helped. Our manufacturers are going to be helped. And again, if somebody wants to come in, including the car companies, if they want to come in and build car plants, they'll do it without tariffs, and therefore prices won't go up. There could be some short-term disturbance, but long-term, it's gonna make our country a fortune.
So Americans should prepare for some short-term pain.
No, you said that. I didn't say that. You know?
Well, if the prices go up.
Let's see what happens. Nobody really knows what is going to happen, other than we know that jobs are going to be produced at levels that we haven't seen before. We know that we think interest rates are going to ultimately be coming down because of things that happen, and they go hand in hand with the tariffs. But we think that the prices for some things, many things, it could be all things, will go down. Ultimately, will go down.
Mr. President, can you explain the timeline here, sir? There's a period of time for a review, a report, 180 days. Sure. What's the earliest date that you think tariffs will actually be implemented and executed?
Well, I would say, maybe I'll ask Howard to answer that, because he's going to be the one that's implementing. What do you think?
Our studies should be all complete by April 1st. So we'll hand the president the opportunity to start on April 2nd if he wants. So I think we'll be ready to go on April 1st, and we'll hand it to the president, and he'll make his decisions. But remember, if they drop their tariffs, prices for Americans are coming down. Our production's going up, and our costs are going down. Remember, it's a two-way street. That's why it's called reciprocal.
And have you spoken to any American CEOs directly about this? Are they calling you and asking for
I've spoken to
exemptions?
many, and many love it. And they say this is going to be the thing that makes our country really prosperous again. And this is going to be what pays down to $36 trillion in debt and all the other things. And this is going to be, this is an amazing day. I think this is going to be a very big day, and in a very positive way for our country. Yes, please.
Mr. President, you've talked about the BAT and the EU before, and your concerns with how the EU treats you. Do you have a number in mind on the European Union? Do you have an idea of where that number is going to land?
Well, what they are now is they have a 20% VAT tax, which we're considering to be similar or the same as the tariff. Plus, they charge lots of fees, and you know they're doing something else. European Union's been very tough on our companies. They sued Apple, they sued Google, they sued Facebook, they sued many other companies, and they're American companies, and the kind of numbers are staggering. And the court system over there is not very good to our companies. If you know that